We are Newsroom. Hello and welcome once again from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Stephen Jansen. The show is always live, and yes, it's broadcast from our studios right here in Auckland Park. Now, between 9 and 12, we're also live streaming on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You can watch us live there, or a little bit later on demand. You can watch snippets of what we've done throughout the morning. Before we get a news update from Elvis, let's go to Anine, who's standing by with our social media channel.
Well, good morning, Eben. It's actually been quite a slow morning on Twitter today, but we do see the ANC Youth League trending for a number of reasons, and we'll talk about why a bit later. But also later in the show, we'll talk about that UFO picture that's been showing up on everyone's social media timeline. Eben, you'll actually be doing an interview on that.
Yeah, I look forward to it. There's no way we can be alone in the universe, although they say that picture is a hoax. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Paul's got a lot of scenarios that we're going to go through. Of course, our question of the day, very important today. We ask you the question, is free education possible at all here in South Africa? That's our question of the day. Is free education possible in South Africa? What are your views? At SABC Newsroom, that's where you send us your responses to this. As we do at the end of the show, we'll have a nice a talking forum with myself, Elvis, and the rest of the crew to go through your answers, and we'll put them up, the best ones, of course. But before we get into that, Elvis is standing by with our first news update of the morning.
Details of how 2.6 billion rand will be generated to cover the 0% fee increase at universities will be made available today by the presidency. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says that the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is in the process of conducting investigations along with the Director of Public Prosecutions into the shooting of 34 minors by police at Marikana in 2012. And Tanzania's National Electoral Commission will announce the results of presidential elections in Dar es Salaam today. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we go to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the sports news. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis, and thank you very much. And very hearty good morning to you at home as well. This is what we've got in store for you in the sports today. Orlando Pirates' woes continue as they fall to a 2-0 defeat at home to Golden Arrows. Sepp Blatter takes a swing at Platini and incriminates himself as sponsors get grilled by British politicians. And of course, Hanneke Meyer chooses Victor Matfield to captain the Boks in their last match at the World Cup. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in the sports. Make sure you stick around for that, around about 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. And right now, let's take a look at your top story this hour. Details of how 2.6 billion rand will be generated to cover the 0% fee increase at universities will be made available today. Meanwhile, the Higher Education Minister, Bladen Nzimande, has told Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education that free university education won't be possible for everybody.
Government's policy is free higher education for the poor. It's not for everyone. Those who are calling for everyone, we can't afford that as a country, and wealthy students must pay.
Security remains tight at Wits University following yesterday's renewed violent protest. University management has described a student demand for the institution to be closed until Monday as unreasonable. The university reopened yesterday after a 2-week disruption due to the protests against tuition fees. But some students blockaded the entrance to the university, forcing police to fire stun grenades and rubber bullets to disperse them. A small fraction of Wits students are still protesting against the outsourcing of cleaning staff. And we'll give you a roundup of all those stories from the various varsities around the country in a short while between me and Eben, so you have to stay tuned. Plus, there's a question that we pose to you today. Is free university or free education in South Africa a possibility? That's our question to you here, and you can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle. Now, news in from the rest of the continent now. Tanzania's National Electoral Commission is expected to announce the results of parliamentary and presidential elections today, despite opposition calls for a recount. The ruling party candidate, John Magufuli, is on track to win the East African nation's closest election in 50 years. The vote in Tanzania's semi-autonomous Zanzibar archipelago was annulled by the Election Commission, meaning there will be a fresh ballot on the islands that have been a hotbed of opposition to the ruling CCM party. The United States says it's alarmed by the decision to nullify the Zanzibar results, saying the vote had been fair. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says that the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, is in the process of conducting investigations along with the National Director of Public Prosecutions into the shooting of 34 miners by police at Marikana in 2012. Minister Nhleko was responding to questions in the National Assembly. He says the ministry wants the IPID investigation to unfold without any influence. He says IPID must also do the reconstruction of the scene as part of the investigation. Minister Nhleko says on that basis, collaboration between IPID and the National Director of Public Prosecutions would have to consider issues raised by the Farlam Commission. Tuberculosis has replaced HIV/AIDS as the world's most deadly infectious disease. Now, this is measured by numbers of people who died from the illness last year. These are some of the findings of a report that was released by the World Health Organization, the WHO, in Geneva in Switzerland. The report comes as global health experts are set to convene in Bali in Indonesia to address the effects of TB and diabetes. It's believed that together the diseases present a looming co-epidemic. According to the WHO, TB killed 1.5 million people last year, while 387 million people are affected by diabetes globally. Moving further afield, over 30 African heads of state are in the Indian capital of New Delhi to discuss ties with India. President Jacob Zuma has already met with Indian business people and encouraged them to invest in South Africa.
Over 30 leaders from the continent arriving in New Delhi is the third India-Africa summit since 2008. Economic ties top the agenda. South Africa is on a mission to rekindle trade. There's been a close to $4 billion decline since 2011.
I wish to remind you that government, in its efforts to remove hurdles in doing business in South Africa, has taken a decision to award a 10-year BRICS business visa for qualifying business persons. As leaders of the Indian business community, you have throughout history led the development of critical trading routes that have joined our two countries.
Indian businesses say they are keen to invest in South Africa and the continent. Known for its digital revolution, it wants to share its expertise, especially in poor areas. President Zuma also held talks with his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi. They spoke about escalating economic relations between the two countries. As these African leaders gather here for the India-Africa Summit, South Africa is also taking advantage of spreading the message that Africa is open for business and South Africa remains the gateway to the continent. Mzwande Lembech, SABC News, New Delhi, India.
Now, as promised earlier, we'll do a roundup of all the universities countrywide in terms of what is happening on the ground. Let's find out from Yemen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarvis. It's been a quiet morning thus far, but security here in Gauteng remains tight at the Braamfontein campus of Wits University, that's here in Johannesburg, following yesterday's renewed violent protests there. The students' 2-week Fees Must Fall campaign was successful after President Jacob Zuma gave in to their demands last week and declared a 0% fee increase for 2016. But a small fraction of Wits students are still protesting for outstanding demands, such as the outsourcing of cleaning staff there now. Our own reporter, Mangoba Mkunu, he joins us from Wits to give us the latest. A very good morning to you, Mangoba. I understand you have a guest with you this morning, but just set the scene for us there this morning. Does it look like things are pretty much back to normal or not?
Well, certainly, Eben, the situation remains volatile here at Wits University following protests yesterday where we saw police firing stun grenades to try and disperse a small group of students who are continuing with protests. They are calling for the end of outsourcing of contract staff here at the university, which is amongst the demands that were being made initially by the students here when they started their protest about 2 weeks ago. But certainly the small group are still insisting that they're going to go on with protest, insisting that they want a total shutdown to continue here at the university. But what we've seen today coming here is that certainly the scene or the situation here has calmed down relatively. We've seen that a number of students are willing to go back to class. In fact, when we walked in here this morning, we saw a number of buses coming in and dropping students and students carrying their backpacks, going into lecture halls. And certainly we've been seeing a lot of students heeding that call to go back to their studies. And we know that also the youth leadership here at the university is currently calling on students to go back to classes and to write their exams. So to further discuss this, I'm joined now by Pindile Mapanga, who's from the Progressive Youth Alliance here at the university, to discuss this further. Pindile, welcome to the show. Firstly, we know that there's a small group of students that are going on with protests. What is your position as the Progressive Youth Alliance?
Look, I think one thing that should be noted is that we employ different forms of strategies and tactics, right? It's also important to make it known that if we are not burning tires and burning books, it doesn't necessarily mean we are not for the cause, all right? We want students to return to their classes, but we also want insourcing, all right? We can't make it a point that these two interests negate because they're interrelated, they're mutually and intrinsically complementary. So we can't make them now clash all of a sudden. We are for students in general, for the working class in particular, and we believe in advancing the course concurrently. So the issue of us not being or to be found wanting on the issue of insourcing, I personally think it's a political ploy, all right, by a small cabal of students who want to delegitimize the leadership of this campus. And I think it's highly disheartening that they've managed to disintegrate the unity of students and to dismantle the hegemony that we've established in the inception of the strike.
Okay, Pindile, I know that you initially were calling also for the very same thing. So does this mean that you have now abandoned this, or are you still going to call on to try and win this battle of against outsourcing?
As I said, we shouldn't be looked as if we are trying to sell out the cause. In fact, we are the ones that initially initiated this campaign, all right, that students must have no fee increment. But in addition to that, as non-peripheral issues, all right, we need to include the issue of workers because they're interrelated, as I said. The fact that we can't afford fees on campus is because our mothers and fathers are ill-treated, are exploited by the system. So we can't address one without the other. But we are saying that students must not suffer at the expense of people who want to create disunity on campus. All right, students are willing to stand up for the cause, but they are also willing to go to exams. Why can't the two work together and complement each other? All right, we have students who are international students, which their visas end by the end of November. All right, what do we say of those students if they don't write exams as expediently as possible? What do we say of students who are in residences who will be chucked out of those residences? Over 60% of the student population stay in res. What do you say of those students? So that's why the PYA stays in governance, because we always maintain sound leadership to our student populace, and we don't try pulling stunts on management unnecessarily so. All right, we pull decisive decisions, all right, that will benefit the general student student populace. And making schools shut down, in our understanding, is not going to benefit our students at this current moment. But we will keep on, and we are insisting on programs that will make sure that Habib actually speaks to the issue of insourcing. It's highly problematic that Habib is not committed to the cause of insourcing. And we are not silent on those issues. During the course of the week, we are planning pickets, we are planning hunger strikes. But once we are done picketing, we'll go back to class. We've done this before. We've done this in 2012, where we go to class hungry, and we've passed, okay? Because we are for the cause of the working class and for the cause of students in general.
Okay, we'll have to hold it there, Pindile, for now. Well, that was Pindile Mapanga, who's from the Progressive Youth Alliance, telling us their stance really on this particular protest, saying that they are supporting the cause, but they believe at this particular juncture it's important for students to go back to class. Now, we have heard from varsity management saying that there were no incidents that were reported overnight here at Wits University, but I'm just going to catch up quickly with Sharona Patel, who's also the Wits University spokesperson, just to get a sense of what's going on in terms of on their side as university management. Sharona, welcome. Again, it's a pleasure to have you today. What's happening currently with the classes? Are classes going on as planned?
Yes, so you can look around you. We've got our academic programs running as normal. We're very grateful today that we haven't had any disturbances yet, and we hope that it stays this way.
And in terms of going forward, is everything still, are we still prepared for exams? Are exams going to take place as scheduled?
So exams will be postponed. A new examination timetable will be made available tomorrow. That's Friday. And we're just rearranging it to accommodate for the time that we lost during the protest. So we promise students that we'll have a new timetable out by tomorrow. But exams, which were meant to start on the 2nd of November, which is Monday, have now been postponed. We're just determining whether it's by a week or 2 weeks.
And certainly yesterday we saw a flare-up of the protest again. We saw property being vandalized and, a fire satellite. I mean, what measures are you putting in place today to ensure that this doesn't happen today?
Okay, so we've got additional security on our campuses today, particularly around lecture theatres. We do have the police on standby. We've asked them at this stage just to secure the gate so people can get in and go out freely. However, we have to say that, the last 2 weeks, the protests have been fairly peaceful, but I think we've seen a change in the nature of the protest in the last 2 days, with things being burnt on campuses, bookshops and books being burnt, etc. And it's for that reason that we're saying that we're going to keep the police presence on campus, just to make sure people can enter and leave, and so that the police is on standby if required. However, we will only be using our campus security to make sure that everything on the campus is fine. Now, from our side, we can't obviously predict what's going to happen next, but for now things are pretty stable. Exams will probably go ahead as usual with just some new dates. Academic activities, we're really trying to catch up for the 2 weeks that we left, and our academics and our students seem committed to doing so.
And just finally, Sharona, we know that that call for outsourcing to end remains. I mean, what is the university doing to try and deal with that particular call?
So the Vice-Chancellor met with workers yesterday. They largely made up the protesters for yesterday, and he met with them and he agreed to 4 things. Number 1 is that he would meet with representatives from the workers today. They would together set up a commission to look at insourcing versus outsourcing at WITS, to look at what's needed in terms of insourcing, what resources are required, how many people are required, etc. And he wants this commission to report by the end of November. Secondly, he's agreed to talk to the Presidential Commission that's been set up to look at to help universities insource. Thirdly, he's agreed to look at a workers' charter and to give them some responses today. And lastly, he's agreed to take the memorandum from the workers and take it to the next meeting of council. So we're hoping that today he will meet with some of the representatives from the outsourced workers.
Thank you very much. That was Sharona Patel, who is the Wits University spokesperson, updating us on the situation here. Well, certainly we are hoping that the situation will remain calm, and certainly that's what the university management here is hoping for at this particular stage. But we'll be keeping a close eye on developments here, and we'll certainly update you there at home to these developments as the day goes on. Back to you, Eben in studio.
Mangoba, thank you very much for that update. We'll be back with him on the spot there at Wits University. Of course, it all started at Wits just over 2 weeks ago now, and then spread all around the country to a scenario where we saw Parliament being stormed. And then, of course, we had the issues outside union buildings in the capital here in Pretoria. Now, at the university, of Free State, it seems, as if matters are also turning back to somewhat of normality. Let's go to Alvis, who's standing by to get us a quick update out of the City of Roses.
Thank you, Eben. Our classes at the University of Free State in Bloemfontein campus have resumed after they were suspended last week following countrywide protests at the universities. Now, security, contract workers and general staff are going about their duties. Yesterday, protesters staged a march and handed over a memorandum to the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Jonathan Jansen. The management is expected to respond to the students' memorandum by not later than this afternoon. SABC reporter Ismail Modiba is at the university to monitor the situation. A very good morning to you, Ismail. And can you tell us what is the latest at the University of the Free State? There have been some progress and management has agreed with the SRC to help the deserving students who qualifies on academic merit to continue with their studies. Tell us what's happening.
Well, good morning. We are at the Central University of Technology here in Bloemfontein. You'd remember that the students here, they also went in solidarity with the campaign last week just to give support to what was happening with regard to the demanding that the fees must fall campaign. There was a disruption and commotion here as the students protested that they were also against the 8% hike here at the Free State, at the Central University of Technology. And they went on up until the police came in to ensure that there is stability and peace in the institution. Here at the Free State, at the Central University of Technology, exams were supposed to start on Monday, but after last week's disruptions, the management here decided to postpone them by 3 days. But I can tell you that behind me is the Butrowski Hall behind me, where engineering students, as from this morning, went inside to write their engineering exams. Around the campus, other faculties have also begun with their examinations, and it's peaceful around the campus here. Everybody's going about their business. But with me, we've got the rector of Central University of Technology, Professor Tandwa Mtembu, to explain to us how did they manage to come about to get the situation as it is this morning. Prof, good morning, and can you tell us how did you manage to get things back on track?
Good morning. Thank you very much. We have been facing this national shutdown campaign. We started seeing students engaging with it last week Thursday, but classes here at CUT got cancelled, especially on Friday afternoon. But after the president made an announcement that vice chancellors or universities in general should look into extending examination time to compensate for lost time, we had engagements during the weekend, last weekend, which culminated in an agreement with the student leaders on Sunday that we will deem 3 days as time lost. And it's as a result of that that the exams were then postponed from Monday to now Thursday. And then they will go on until 3 days after the scheduled time when they were supposed to end. I think that was the 15th or the 14th.
There's also a meeting that has been planned here sometime this week with NEFSAS to engage with the students over the issue of finances. Can you tell us about that meeting?
The meeting was actually arranged quite some time ago in order for the NSFAS office to engage deeply with the student leadership from across the universities in this country. And given how topical this issue of NSFAS funding is, I have no doubt that one of the matters they will be discussing very, very thoroughly is the issue of the debt that students carry, is the issue of how much more money could be made available and what are the criteria and so forth.
Okay, that was Professor Tandwa Mtembu here at the Vice Chancellor of Central University of Technology. Not far from here is the Bloemfontein University of the Free State, where also students were engaged in were demanding that the fees must fall. They've also handed in over their memorandum yesterday, demanding handing over a set of grievances to the rector of the university. We'll obviously going to end at the institution as well to check on progress as how things are happening. But with the University of the Free State, exams have been planned to start next week, Monday.
Ismail, what is currently happening? Have the lectures resumed at that university, University of the Free State?
Well, at the University of Free State, as we can see, as of now, things are back to normal. Lectures have resumed, and they are preparing themselves for exams, which start next week, Monday.
Now, Professor Jansen was not at the university, but he did accept the memorandum that was given to him yesterday. What was his reaction?
Well, the rector promised that they will look into some of the demands that have been, put upon by the student, and he welcomed the student very. It was a very cordial and frank meeting, and they look jovial, and they are prepared to look at some of the demands that have been placed ahead by the student. And as it looked yesterday, they are happy and willing to engage with them so that they can find an amicable solution to the impasse.
Ismail, thank you so much for that update. That was our reporter Ismail Modiba from the Free State. Now we're going to get to a lot of reaction from various universities. Anine, you can join me and tell us what is going on currently with all the comments that we're receiving on our question that we posed this morning, even to our viewers.
Well, Elvis, I can tell you that Wits on Fire was still trending earlier this morning, but we'll get to that just now because I did mention earlier that the ANC Youth League is trending for a number of reasons on Twitter this morning. The main reason being news that came out this morning from a Northwest ANC Youth League official, Thabo Molamu. He's asking the police minister to scrap charges laid against him by the Northwest Premier. Now, the Northwest Premier says that Thabo actually started a whole social media campaign on Facebook that very interesting indeed, right, Elvis? that wanted him to be killed, all sorts of kind of allegations like that, incited violence against the Premier. So some serious allegations, but we can see what people are tweeting about this and what some other topics coming up around the ANC Youth League this morning. That's why it is trending in the number 3 spot this morning on Twitter.
Let's see some of those comments coming up, and Eben, you can also join us in there. But Kwanda says, I think it's high time that the ANC Youth League march in support of Zuma and the ANC in their fight against democracy. Amanda!
Yeah, interesting. Tax must fall there. Talks about, I missed the ANC Youth League that questioned the economic standing of our country, the tripartite challenges of inequality, poverty and unemployment. Of course, tax fees must fall. Tax is the only place where fees have really fallen. There's not even going to be a registration fee for next year, Elvis, which is interesting.
Well, that is very interesting, but that's why we're also asking the question, you know, is no fees or no fees for high-end institutions?
Is it possible?
Is it possible really for that to happen in South Africa? We'll also take that discussion a little bit forward in the next hour with Professor Raymond Parsons to tell us a little bit more about that scenario in terms of where is the money going to come from. That's another hashtag probably that we will see.
Yeah, absolutely. The President said it's possible. You've seen the question. We love you to interact with us. But Anine.
Then the other question people are asking around the ANC Youth League on Twitter this morning. Kagiso, has the ANC Youth League leader recovered from the hospital? We know he was admitted to a hospital a while ago, actually. Yes, he has been released. He is okay. He got onto a flight. Apparently, he had some breathing problems, but he is okay. So you can see a number of reasons why people are talking about the Youth League this morning on Twitter. But then, Elvis, to get back to your question around the students. So Wits on Fire tweeted or trended a bit earlier this morning. I can tell you it's become extremely evident that students are now divided around this movement. There are a lot of students who are serious about their studies. They want to carry on with their exams. They want to get to their books. They want to end this year on a high note. But then, of course, we still have some of the students who want to carry on with their protests.
Yeah, I saw that's very concerning. The split is quite evident now, Elvis. You know that we heard the representative there, Pinduli Mapanga, a little bit earlier, talking about how this is being politicized by small groups of students on campus who have an agenda, and they're not happy about that, to be honest.
They're not happy at all, and it seems like that there's also perhaps another agenda that the students are not really ready for exams. But that's where we got to leave it for now. We'll take a break, and in fact, we're going to go to Eben, to you.
Just got to have a look at what's on. Happening. I'll have a quick look at what's on the diary in the courts and in and around the country quickly. Thanks to Elvis and Anine. They'll be with us throughout the rest of the day. We're going to go around the country and make sure that everything's okay at all of our campuses, hopefully, as they come up will cross there today. Now, let's start quickly in Johannesburg. There you see on the screen, or right here on the screen, you see the trial against a 21-year-old man alleged to have caused the accident that led to the death of top billing presenter Simba Mere and his best friend. Well, that's expected to continue in the Randburg Magistrates Court. Now, Preshlin Naidu faces a case of culpable homicide and reckless and negligent driving. Now, still here in Johannesburg, the station commander at the Boksburg police station is expected to appear in the Magistrates Court in Boksburg on charges of harassment. The top cop is also accused of running a loan shark business. Very interesting story there. We'll try and have a little look, see how that develops throughout the day. All our platforms will look at all of this. Comments now. Northwest Premier, we just spoke about that. Supra Mahumapelo has called back Northwest University students who were evacuated yesterday by campus management. We showed you the pictures yesterday. Now, the university spokesperson, Louis Jacobs, said the decision was taken to close the Mafeking campus because it had been under siege by protesting students. And here are the response of some of those students. Now, Martin Machiavelli says, SRC will today at 11 a.m. meet with campus management to finalize the settlement reached with our legal team. That's at the Northwest University. Then Kabelo Nkwana says, can we put the 40K differences aside and continue with the struggle? People are getting evicted, for heaven's sake. We showed you an iconic picture yesterday of students pulling their suitcases down the main road there in Mafeking. 26th October, Nkuli talks about apparently the removal of students from res is for their safety. How are they more safe on the street than in their rooms? That's a very, very valid point. There's that picture I was talking about. Now, Boniwe talks about students were left to feel vulnerable and homeless, all because they were fighting for their rights. Here is that iconic picture I was talking about. Students in the main road in Mahikeng pulling their trolleys, pulling their suitcases with all their belongings as they've been evicted. Sedium Nisi, that's the picture, says NU evacuation. There's the remnants, of this protest, of this fight that's been going on. Remnants of tires that have been burnt in the streets, other signs kicked over, and the like. It's been pretty much like that all around the country, all around our campuses over the last couple of weeks. Now let's take a look at the front pages from around the world as we have a look what's happening in Europe. The Times reports that England's bid to host the World Cup in 2018, that's a Football World Cup, was always doomed because of a secret deal to award the tournament to Russia. Now, the disgraced head of FIFA admitted that yesterday. Interesting story. Maybe Kendall will touch on that a little bit later. Now, moving to Scotland, the Scotsman says cancer specialists have called for the Scottish government to make tackling lung cancer a top priority after a report revealed that outcomes in access to treatment compared poorly with the rest of Europe. Then finally, across the pond, as they say, the International New York Times reports that Greek Coast Guards rescued more than 200 migrants after a large wooden boat capsized due to high winds off the Greek island of Lesbos. 3 people died in that incident. Now, this is Newsroom. We'll be all around the country for the next couple of hours to give you updates. And we ask you the question, is free education possible in South Africa? That's what the students want. Or is it only poor students that should be, that should have their fees paid for? How do you decide who's poor and who's not? These are critical questions. We want you to interact with us at SABC Newsroom, as you saw on the screen. You're watching Newsroom. We'll be back with you on SABC News after a short little break.
Your destiny is not determined by the township you come from.
The one place where we find movers and shakers is in the township. It's just that they're diamonds in the rough and some of them don't even know it.
Being young with no experience in business is a challenge that Bulelani took upon himself.
I was motivated by the prayer. I was motivated by the love.
To be a novice in business was tough, but experience made him a businessman of note.
It took me 7 years to make my first million. I've got all the scars to prove that I started with nothing.
A journey well traveled.
For me, that is the one major thing. The ability to touch other people's lives. Nothing goes beyond that.
Join your host Puleng Mulebati on Bopilong every Saturday at 5:30 p.m.
Well, now we move on a little bit. Yesterday, 5 of South Africa's brightest young creative stars were named as the winners of the Standard Bank Young Artist Awards. The Young Artist Awards were presented by the National Arts Festival Committee to emerging young South African artists who've demonstrated exceptional ability in their chosen fields, but who have not yet achieved national exposure and acclaim. Now, one of the winners, Sia Makuzeni, who is a jazz artist born in the Eastern Cape, well, back in 1982, grew up singing in the choir and playing recorder before picking up the trombone while at Stirling High School in East London. Today, she's with us in studio to tell us a little bit more on the award and her music. Congratulations, my dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about last night, the awards ceremony, and then it's always nice to be recognized, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I think what I've received is nothing but warmth and joy, essentially. A lot of people are truly happy to see this happen, and I think it's just really a testament of the support in the industry.
But tell us about, I want to talk about this ceremony itself. You know, in South Africa, it's at times one often hears the complaints of how difficult it is to be a creative, an artist for that matter, and to go out and eke a living out for yourself. In this space, the importance of Young Artist Awards in South Africa for you?
Well, I think, if anything, it's really about acknowledgement and recognition. And this is a platform that, through Standard Bank, has really been able to push that agenda. I think that it's quite important to have these sort of avenues so that people can have a certain, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I've been in the music industry for a good, I think, 14 years professionally. I started when I was really young, and it's just really incredible to find that acknowledgement eventually and recognition from people.
Yeah, I was just waiting to see some of the pictures from last night. Let's hope we've got those pictures, but we don't have the pictures, unfortunately. I thought we had those, but you know, you grew up in the Eastern Cape and you sang in the choir. Just take us back to that little bit of a journey and that got you to this point.
So I was at Stirling Primary School, and I was in the choir, and I fell in love with music, obviously, at that point already. And then I discovered the recorder whilst I was still in primary school, and I think that in a way, sort of extended the passion. And it was only in high school that I really, truly understood where I wanted to be when it comes to music. You know, I mean, I didn't know anything about jazz music beforehand. And I'd just been studying Baroque and classical music as well as just being in the choir. And through the program that we had at the school, which was run by Alan Webster, I discovered this whole other side of music, really, and discovered that I had a passion for it. So, yeah.
The trombone is quite a big thing, and you're quite a petite lady. How did you end up with the trombone, really?
I always tell people that, in a way, I feel like the instrument chose me. Because I didn't necessarily have an idea of what I wanted to do. Just moving away from recorder, I knew that I wanted to play another instrument. And I tried to find something that was actually also closer to my embouchure, but it obviously wasn't meant to be, because the only sound I could make was from a trombone, and that's how that whole relationship started.
Now, the award, what do you think the award means to you right now, and what do you think it should mean to you going forward, and what do you hope to achieve from here?
I think the award definitely means it's a new door of opportunities, definitely. I'm just really thrilled and honoured and grateful to have received such an accolade. I'm hoping to try and use it in a way to solidify my solo career. I've been in the industry for 14 years professionally, and I've worked with a lot of incredible colleagues. But I also feel maybe perhaps this is the time to try and move towards that stance of being able to put up my own music.
Now, when they called your name last night, just tell me, how did you feel? You weren't expecting to win, were you?
I was very nervous, very, very nervous. But again, it's quite thrilling, and it's I'm really grateful. I'm very happy.
Well, fantastic to have you with us. Sia Makazeni is a winner of one of the Standard Bank Young Artist Awards last night. Of course, the ceremony was held here in Johannesburg. You can, well, we didn't have any pictures for you to look at today, but you can go onto the website and have a look at how Sia won this fantastic award last night. Once again, congratulations, and thank you for coming around to do the media this morning. Normally these kinds of things have a big party after them, don't they? So you've done well, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we move on. Germany's World Cup winning captain and former coach Franz Beckenbauer admitted that he made a mistake in the bidding process to host the 2006 World Cup, but denied that votes were bought. The German Football Association is currently under investigation by FIFA over an unexplained payment of 6.7 million euros made by the 2006 World Cup Organising Committee to football's governing body. Now, here are the pictures that are rolling now with regards to that story. Of course, let's take a look at social media. What people are saying with regards to that. There's a lot of criticism around South Africa being the one that paid for a World Cup. South Africa were, well, initially fingered in this investigation. It is nice to see that all the culprits are now having to be brought to book. Germany, South Korea have to be investigation 2002, and you can go back all the way to the USA in 1994. All of the World Cups under the tutelage of Sepp Blatter will have to be looked at, how these nations were chosen. But let's have a look at the comments. They've been varied, of course. Now, James talks about, if the rumours are true, the authorities need to freeze FIFA bank accounts and reimburse all the countries who had failed bids. He talks about farcical. Yes, James, it is a little bit, but I think everybody knew how FIFA was doing business. Because only once the British lost out on a bid did they use all their financial might and influence to bring FIFA down. Until then, they were on side. Big nations like England, Spain, Germany need to pull out of FIFA and World Cup till the whole thing is gutted. No World Cup without big names, says Danny. RP Stilskin talks about Dempsey had a mandate from his association to vote for South Africa should England drop out in early voting rounds. They did. He abstained. Yes, that's what happened. I remember we had massive live broadcasts around the country, and it was a big surprise when he abstained. Gregory Mendham talks about, I imagine Blatter's lawyer is banging his head against a wall today. Yes, there were a lot of talk around South Africa's World Cup. It was dodgy, and South Africa were almost fingered alone in this whole process. That's just how FIFA did business. You saw our question of the day, is free education possible for all in South Africa? We are interested in your views. We'll put it up a little bit later. Of course, Newsroom's Facebook page is alive 24/7. This is what you can get there today. Protesting Wits University workers and students say it was totally unnecessary for the police to use brutal force against them. Now, police used stun grenades and a handful of protesters who were preventing cars from entering the main campus in Braamfontein yesterday. Then, Tanzania's National Electoral Commission is expected to announce the results of presidential elections in Dar es Salaam today. This despite a decision by Zanzibar's Electoral Commission to annul presidential and parliamentary elections on the island amid accusations of cheating. Then, the BRICS Global University Summit has now ended in Moscow in Russia, with South Africa and fellow countries announcing a number of initiatives to promote higher education. Maybe they came up with a solution to give us free education, if not the 2.6 billion rand shortfall that we're going to need for next year. Now, SABC Newsroom is what you put in the search bar, top left-hand side on the Facebook page. we'll pop up this page, just like it, and all the latest live news will be in your stream. There, we go to a break, but don't forget our question. Is free education possible in South Africa? You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Najja mu TV kandaga nga ndi mu abaana batya babiri kinali tidi nga bali bezingira endira era bankobera ati endira dezingira abaana abo singa nali njire luuyi mubutufu nali nja kuviira mwa bango mwana asooka yaida bulungi ayo nayasembayo yaidira magulu.
Uganda is struggling to enhance the health care. We have a high infant mortality because of pregnancy-related conditions.
The mission of Imaging the World is to place affordable ultrasound machines in the most rural health facilities. Philips has been involved in the project from the very beginning.
Omulala niwe iswa Livingstone Salon. Owokubiri nitenywa Wilson Kabali. Singa nali njire luuyi nga tumaze kufuna kubona ka TV. Nali nja kuviira mwawo.
Innovation and you. Philips.
Welcome back. You're with Newsroom now for something a little bit close to home and very concerning. One person suffers a stroke in South Africa every 6 minutes. That's according to the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Southern Africa. Stroke Week, which kicked off yesterday and ends on the 3rd of November next week, is a campaign to raise awareness among South Africans and how to prevent this disease. Now, stroke is known as a brain attack, as it damages the brain, similarly to how a heart attack damages the heart. This year, the World Stroke Organization aims to highlight the impact of stroke on women and steps women can take to reduce their risk. Now, the Heart and Stroke Foundation, which plays a major part in educating South Africans, joins us in our Cape Town studio this morning. Jessica Byrne. She's a registered dietitian at the Heart and Stroke Foundation, South Africa. Very good morning to you, Jessica. How are you?
Morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Jessica, one person has a stroke in South Africa 6 minutes. Is that alarmist, or should we be really concerned?
That is quite a large number, and it is concerning because strokes are actually the third biggest killer in our country after HIV or AIDS and heart disease. And what is also concerning is that it's actually the leading cause of disability in our country. So, we see that every day about 70 people die from a stroke in South Africa, but actually a much larger portion survive the stroke, but often are left with quite a severe disability, which not only impacts on themselves, but on the family, and also on the health sector and the economy of the country. So it really is quite concerning to see these high numbers of strokes.
Jessica, just tell us, what is a stroke and who is the most at risk?
So a stroke, as you mentioned, it's very similar to what happens in a heart attack. So basically, a portion of the brain doesn't receive the oxygen and nutrients that it needs because either the blood vessel has become blocked due to a blood clot, or because the blood vessel has actually burst and it's causing bleeding around that brain tissue. So that portion of the brain doesn't receive oxygen, and that brain tissue starts to die. And that can then result in a number of different problems within the body, ranging from paralysis, difficulty with walking, vision problems, speech problems. So it can have a number of different effects in the body.
Stroke Week. This year, we're targeting women. Are women more and more at risk at the moment?
Yes, I think, many of us aren't aware. We often picture it as being more of a man's disease, but actually in South Africa, more women actually do suffer from strokes than men do. And, this is partly because a lot of the traditional risk factors for stroke, such as smoking, high blood pressure, overweight and obesity, diabetes, a lot of these are very prevalent in our women. For example, about 1 in 3 women actually suffer from high blood pressure in South Africa. But also we see that there's other risk factors that are specific to women only. And these are things like having high blood pressure during pregnancy, diabetes during pregnancy, using certain contraceptives and hormone replacement therapy can sometimes also put certain women at risk.
How do you know, or how do you see if someone has a stroke, and what should you do?
So with a stroke, there's usually it's a very sudden onset of symptoms. And we actually use something called the FAST test that is very easy to remember, that anyone can actually use at home if you think that someone is having a stroke. So F stands for face, and you can ask the person to smile or show their teeth and have a look if there's any drooping of the face. A is for arms, so ask the person to raise both arms in front of them. Does one arm drift down? S is for speech, so ask the person to repeat a sentence, and then you can see if there's any trouble with speaking. Are they slurring their words, or they don't understand? And then T is for time, and this just really is a reminder that we need to act fast, and really every minute counts when it comes to a stroke. So if you have answered yes to any of these other questions, it's important to call an ambulance or get the person to a hospital as quickly as possible, because the sooner they can receive treatment, the better chance of recovery.
Finally, you're a dietitian. Tell us about what should people be eating to avoid having a stroke, or what shouldn't we be eating?
Well, actually, the biggest risk factor for strokes is actually high blood pressure. And in South Africa, we know that this is a very bad problem with high blood pressure. And actually, salt is one of the key drivers of high blood pressure. So we need to be firstly looking at ways that we can try and cut back on salt. So that's firstly looking at using less salt during cooking and at the table. And then also cutting back on a lot of the processed foods that we buy that already do contain a lot of salt. So trying to have more fruits and vegetables, buying fresh ingredients, and rather trying to make more of your foods from scratch rather than buying takeaways and convenience meals.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Jessica. That's Jessica Byrne coming to you live from Cape Town. We're talking about National Stroke Week. Now, one South African has a stroke every 6 minutes. That's 10 people in this country have a stroke every hour of every single day. Now, the Labour Department has launched an inquiry into the collapse of a temporary pedestrian bridge, of course, in Sandton, north of Johannesburg. Here's the scene. 2 people were killed there when the bridge collapsed, and 21 others were injured. Now, the inquiry will take 6 months to complete its work. That's what we heard yesterday. These are the pictures from yesterday. Of course, Hasina was the one giving us the updates of this really tragic event. A lot of reaction around this on social media. Let's just have a quick look what people are saying. So it took 2 weeks for the Department of Labour to decide a commission must investigate the bridge collapse. Yes, Azat Azania. Community dialogues. Marion Roberts will get off lightly on this one, says community dialogues. Then we'll get on Pressure Pusher Panda says Marion Roberts will have its day of reckoning. Delaying by launching an inquiry will not absolve them of having to pay. Yes, a lot of people unhappy with the fact that Marion Roberts did not come out straight out to face the music now. Ms. Lelo talks about 6 months to conclude the inquiry. Yes, we have to do a proper job, Ms. Lelo. That is what is expected. Then Free Education for All talks about that 6 months is to get people to forget. Trust me, people will never forget this one. Bridge collapse. We remember the chaos that it caused here in Johannesburg for that entire Friday as, of course, traffic went all over. And our man is standing by to give us a little quick heads up. Fire warnings in the Northern Cape.
Yeah.
Heat wave warnings in the east and western parts of the country.
West, yes.
When is it going to stop?
Hopefully soon. Let's hope it clears up very soon. The fire warning is expected to last most of today, but then temperature will still be high tomorrow and maybe over Saturday, especially as you travel towards Namibia and Botswana. Extremely hot weather is expected there, but that should end up very soon.
Well, Tsietsi is going to give us a quick roundup of the weather on the continent.
Okay, let's now have a look at that weather. Some partly cloudy skies are expected towards the western side of southern Africa, particularly along Namibia and all the way towards the northern parts. The heat wave that we just mentioned are expected towards Upington, Springbok, going down towards the R in the Northern Cape province. Partly cloudy skies and possibilities of showers towards the Western Cape as well as over some parts of the Eastern Cape. Should expect similar conditions tomorrow for much of the east, as you're expecting a light chance of rain towards the Eastern Cape coast as well as over Swaziland, Mpumalanga and over Mozambique. Otherwise, clear skies are expected for the interior of southern Africa, stretching all the way towards the central parts. Still, higher temperatures are expected for the next couple of days. You'll see with the temperatures now 32 towards Mahikeng, 36 for Freiburg, and sunny skies for Kimberley, Bloemfontein into the Free State province, as well as over the western sides of KwaZulu-Natal. Expect some partly cloudy conditions only along the coastal parts for tomorrow. But for today, it is expected to be sunny and hot. 39 for Graaff-Reinet, 42 Beaufort West, and 34 towards Colesberg and over the R. Looking into the neighboring countries now, starting with Karasburg in Namibia, expect temperatures to be into the upper 30s. And that's basically the order of the day for the rest of Namibian regions, especially over the desert and moving into the Kalahari. Hot weather is expected, 37 for Maun, Serowe is at 31 degrees. And then the eastern side, and including the eastern interior, it's expected to be just as hot, Kariba 36, and then 28 for Harare and Bindura. The coastal regions only towards the northern parts where you expect sunny conditions, but as you move towards the southern parts, you expect some cloud cover. Some thunder showers for Maputo as well as over Shai. It gets a lot warmer towards Toliara as well as over Morombe. But there's good news that there's a good chance of isolated and scattered thunder showers towards the central parts and towards the more middle regions of Madagascar. But up north, sunny skies are expected, hot weather, 35 degrees the maximum for Mahajanga. Anziranana also expected to be hot. The Comores, temperatures just around 31 for Anjouan. Partly cloudy skies are expected right throughout Moroni. And then there's a bit of change towards the Seychelles, also something that's very welcome as we're seeing possibilities of rain towards Pralin and St. Denis. Port Louis at 30 degrees. Maximum temperatures are expected to be hot along those parts. That's it for the weather for now. Stay tuned. There'll be more later.
Thanks, Tsietsi. Yes, fire warnings continue in the northwestern parts of the country. I can tell you, Kendall and Elvis have just arrived here for that main update at 10 o'clock now. Couple of minutes, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll give a complete wrap of what is happening around the country.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Cut! Boy! Sit!
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Network, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games, and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Thursday, the 29th of October 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. As you know, we're broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios, Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. You have to stay with us as we bring you the latest news from here and around the globe. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock, but first, let's take a look at all your headlines. The Higher Education Ministry says the announcement of how the 2.6 billion rand shortfall to fund the 0% fee increase will no longer be made this afternoon. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says that the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is in the process of conducting investigations along with the Director of Public Prosecutions into the shooting of 34 miners by police at Marikana in 2012. And Tanzania's National Electoral Commission will announce the results of the presidential elections in Dar es Salaam today. Now, those are all your headlines, but first let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the sports news. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you very much for that. And hearty good morning to everybody at home as well. In sports, this is what we've got for you stored for today. Orlando Pirates' woes continue as they fall to a 2-0 defeat at home to Golden Arrows. And Sepp Blatter takes a swing at Platini and incriminates himself as sponsors get grilled by British politicians. Hanneke Meyer chooses Victor Matfield to captain the Boks in their last match at the World Cup. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in the sports, around about 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. And that's all coming up a little bit later. But right now, our top story. The Higher Education Ministry says the announcement of how the 2.6 billion rand shortfall to fund the 0% fee increase will no longer be made this afternoon. The ministry says talks are still underway between the Presidency, Department of National Treasury. Meanwhile, the Higher Education Minister, Bladen Zamande, has told Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education that free university education won't be possible for everybody.
Government's policy is free higher education for the poor. It's not for everyone. Those who are calling for everyone, we can't afford that as a country, and wealthy students must pay.
Security remains tight at Wits University following yesterday's renewed violent protest. University management has described a student demand for the institution to be closed until Monday as unreasonable. The university reopened yesterday after a 2-week disruption due to the protest against tuition fees. But some students blockaded the entrance to the university, forcing police to fire stun grenades and rubber bullets to disperse them. A small faction of Wits students are still protesting against the outsourcing of the cleaning staff. Students at the University of Cape Town have vowed to continue supporting contract workers, calling for an end to the outsourcing of certain jobs on campus. Management yesterday agreed to the principle of insourcing some services following a council meeting. That decision comes as charges were withdrawn against a group of students and workers charged with contravening a court order sought by the university. Kamal Lochrenberg is in Cape Town. A very good morning to you, Kamal, and welcome. Can you give us an update as to what is happening there?
Yes, Elvis, a very good morning to you. Well, as you can see behind me, the University of Cape Town resembles somewhat of a ghost town this morning. Very little activity is taking place here this morning, and classes remain suspended until further notice. We also do know that the University of Cape Town, the University of the Western Cape, and the Campus Peninsula University of Technology will remain closed for the duration of the week. Now, as you rightfully said yesterday, charges were withdrawn against students and workers who were arrested at this campus last week, Tuesday, against a court order preventing them from causing any disruption on campus. Now, what we've just learned this morning is that the university has signed an agreement with the unions about to insource some of the services that has been abandoned at the university. These services include gardening and catering, and from what we understand, that a possible media briefing will be held later today just to discuss what was discussed at a meeting between the unions and the university management last night.
Now, when I look at the picture just behind you there, the clouds look very ominous and very dark. Is that the mood on the campus today?
Elvis, very much so. We managed to speak to a few of students who are here today, and we discussed, how has the mood been on campus? And they said it's been relatively quiet. They're obviously quite stressed about pending exams that are coming up. And one of the issues that they said they have as well is that the library at the university has also now been closed. We do understand, however, that if things do return back to normal, pending the agreement between the unions and the university, that the library will be open tomorrow and that some of the services will be restored here.
How's the security there at the moment?
While there's little to no security here today, security was one of the services that was abandoned since last week. Now, pending the agreement that was discussed last night, security services will be one of the services that will eventually be insourced. Now, according to the information that was sent to us, these services will only be insourced once their contracts have been terminated with the respective companies.
Now, Kamel, are the students now preparing for exams, or the university, are they getting ready for that? And is the agreement that was signed the way forward really for the university?
What we do understand is that the students were called to use this week that the university has been closed and classes has been suspended to prepare for the upcoming exams. One of the students that we spoke to earlier this morning said that next week is known as their consolidation week. That depends if the university does indeed open. So what will happen this week is that students have been told, take it upon themselves, try and knuckle down, take in what they can, and then next week, once there is a consolidation period, or if there is a consolidation period, a way forward then will be discussed. What we hope to hear later, if there is a media briefing, is what happens next week and thereafter. They do understand that the exams hopefully will start around about the 9th of November.
Kamel, thank you so much for that update. as Kamel Lochrenberg in Cape Town. Now, matric examinations in the northwest have been severely compromised. There were no examinations taking place in 17 schools in Ganyesa due to service delivery protests in the area. That has since turned around, but learners in Kagisano Malopo are urging the Department of Public Works in the northwest to respond to the demands of the residents. Schools in the area were disrupted last week as the community were calling for the department to complete a road between Ganyesa and Madi Nyonyani. 43 grade 12 learners at the Mapo Itsele village in Taung had to be escorted to a secure place on the 11th hour after the protesting residents made threats to disrupt the examinations. Our reporter in Mahikeng is Tolofelo Matabedi, who has been monitoring the story very closely. Tolofelo, very good morning to you, and can you tell us what is the latest there?
Yeah, Elvis, the latest is that the Education Department had to move or relocate majority of the matric learners, or almost all the matric learners, to different centers. There's learners that have been relocated to a center in Taung, which is the PH Mwekezi High School, where they will be accommodated and they will be writing their exams. And others were located to or relocated to Freiburg, and they're staying at a center in Freiburg where they are going to be sitting for their exams, and they are actually accommodated there. And another group has been taken to Swais Reneke. Those are the contingencies, if you like, that the department has put in place to ensure that at least they give the matric learners of the affected villages a fighting chance to at least be able to sit for their matric exams this year.
Now, yesterday when we spoke to the Education MEC, she did indicate that that is the situation, that the matrics are being taken care of, but there is a problem with the grade 1 to 11 learners. How is the local government planning to intervene?
Yeah, there is a serious problem with those group of learners, because we went to Saudi village in the Ganyesa area. This is one of the 21 villages and 17 schools that have been affected by this impasse. When we got there, we found, children playing, children going around doing their household chores and all of that. But whilst they are supposed to do, what they are supposed to do as learners, go to school, the schools were closed. We went to the other school where we found pedal locks on the gates, and we then went to a community meeting where we spoke to the tribesmen, who indicated that they understand that this is taking their students or their learners or children a bit aback, but they are accusing government of not stepping up, of not coming to the party with regards to the road construction. They say that construction commenced, and when they were happy that at least what they asked for is just about to be achieved, unfortunately it was halted. They pointed their fingers at government specifically, saying that the very kids are staying in the very road which hasn't been tarred in so many years, and they're saying that theirs is a concern that is voiced by other 16 villages in and around Ganyesa, and they are saying that they are all speaking in one voice, saying they want their roads to be tarred. They want to have proper roads for them to can then allow the kids to go back to school.
Now, Tolofelo, what are you hearing from government perspective? How are they going to resolve this issue in terms of the road being finished and the kids can go back to school?
Well, I spoke to Mr. Elias Malindi, who is the spokesperson of the Northwest Education Department, who indicated that they've been engaging, they've never stopped engaging with different sections of the communities in those villages. And he now tells me that yesterday, there's word that came to their offices that it looks as though some of the villages, or if not all of the villages, are now, willing to listen. They are willing to say that maybe they should allow the kids to go back to school, even though when we were there, they were adamant that they will not allow that can happen. So maybe it's part of the negotiations that are ongoing between government on the one hand and the communities, maybe a give and take, maybe them promising that the road construction will commence, and one will never know what's happening behind closed doors. But, from what Mr. Malindi is saying, there's that, sort of shift from the community to say that maybe they might be allowing the kids to go back to school by Monday. But that is still left to be seen if really on Monday all the 17 schools will reopen and kids will be able to go back to school.
And what are you hearing from the community? Are they saying that this is the only way that they can engage with government by withholding the kids from writing their final exams to get their problem sorted out by getting the road?
Elvis, remember, this is not the first time that this community has acted in this way. They had acted in this way in the past. That's when we saw then road construction commencing and all of that. But then instead of the construction continuing and being completed, then it was halted abruptly. So, you know, maybe they've seen that it worked previously and they were able to get something from government. And now they are thinking that maybe by doing this, that will then allow government to come back and then finish what they started, because work have already started. When we were driving through villages in Khanyisa, we saw heaps of, of sand and all of that to indicate that there was actually work. And even in Saudi, we were told that one of the big construction companies had actually taken their porter camps out of the village, but a week ago or so, they then returned those porter camps to them. That indicates that maybe something will happen and the construction company will then come back and continue with the construction of the roads in their villages.
Now, what will happen next? When will we know what the final outcome will be, you think?
You know, it will be interesting to see what happens on Monday, because on Monday probably we should go back there to see if, the negotiations that are happening behind closed doors between government on the one hand and communities have borne any fruits, looking at the fact that will they actually allow the grade 11 to grade 1 learners to go back to school, because it's really not a good situation. When we were in Saudi, actually a grade, I think that boy was a grade 2 or 3 learner. He was crying, literally crying, saying that, you know, we want to go back to school, but the people that are striking in our village are not allowing us to go back to school. So you can see that on the one hand, the learners or the kids want to go back to school. They know the importance probably of getting an education, and they want that. But on the other hand, there is this, impasse between government and the villages, or the tribal men at those villages, or the tribal authorities at those villages around the issues of the construction of the road in the villages.
Now, Northwest did very well last year with the matric results, and are we likely to see the province repeating that with the problems that we have currently?
Well, when we spoke to the MEC on the first day of matric writing their exams, she indicated that they, even though this is not a competition per se, because South Africa is one country, but they believe that, those that are actually looking at these challenges and saying maybe Northwest will not perform as they did last year, they have another thing coming, because she believes that the Northwest will be able to push and the Northwest will be able to perform or outperform the results that they achieved last year.
Tsolofelo, thank you so much for that update. That was our reporter in Maikeng, Tsolofelo Matabedi. He's monitoring the situation there in Northwest for us, and as you can hear, it seems like there is some negotiations going on that might just salvage the situation for all the school kids, not just for the matriculants. Meanwhile, the Communications Workers Union says it will go ahead with a postal workers' march in Johannesburg today, despite a court order against it. The post office earlier won an urgent court interdict prohibiting the union from marching or picketing at the post office's work premises, including mail centres and retail outlets. The union says it will press ahead with the march but will avoid the restricted areas. The union is demanding the conversion of all contract workers to permanent and a 10% salary increase. Post office outlets in Gauteng will be closed during the march. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says that the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, is in the process of conducting investigations along with the National Director of Public Prosecutions into the shooting of 34 miners by police at Marikana in 2012. Minister Nhleko was responding to questions in the National Assembly. He says the ministry wants the IPID investigation to unfold without any influence. He says IPID must also do the reconstruction of the scene as part of the investigation. Minister Nhleko says on that basis, collaboration between IPID and the National Director of Public Prosecutions would have to consider issues raised by the Farlam Commission. Tuberculosis has replaced HIV/AIDS as the world's most deadly infectious disease. This is measured by numbers of people who died from the illness last year. These are some of the findings of a report released by the World Health Organization, the WHO, in Geneva, Switzerland. That report comes as the global health experts are set to convene in Bali in Indonesia to address the effects of TB and diabetes. It's believed that together the diseases present a looming co-epidemic. According to the WHO, TB killed 1.5 million people last year, while 387 million people are affected by diabetes globally. The Pietermaritzburg High Court will sentence 2 brothers today for the murder of 8 family members. The attack happened 2 weeks ago at Umthwalume in the Scottsburg district on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast. Zanele and Tulani Mkwabe killed their relatives, including 3 toddlers, after accusing them of practicing witchcraft. They pleaded guilty to the murders yesterday. A large crowd of angry community members gathered outside the local court, prompting the authorities to move the trial to Pietermaritzburg. Now that's all the news we have for you in this hour. Kendall Makamate is standing by with your sports news.
Health Talk looks into the increase of suicide and symptoms leading to suicide.
The death wish grows when you go into depression after a lot of stress.
And often when we talk about suicide, we don't talk about a person wanting to stop living, but rather wanting to stop living in pain.
After losing everything in life that lead you to no options but suicide.
I had that spirit of fear in me to say, don't even face tomorrow.
After being overwhelmed with stress and trauma, it becomes difficult to have self-control.
People learning tools and skills that will practically enable them to meet these challenges.
In trying times, never be alone. Reach out for help to a better solution.
Support should be done by a counselor or psychologist where you're able to speak about how you're feeling in a safe, accepting, non-judgmental space.
For all your health tips, join Dr. Silo Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10.
Good morning and thank you very much. It's time for sports now. Mamelodi Sundowns played to a goalless draw against Polokwane City in Atteridgeville last night. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates suffered yet another blow in the Absa Premiership following a 2-0 loss to Golden Arrows.
Pirates and Arrows observed a moment of silence in respect of their late Ajax Cape Town defender Cecil Lolo. After that, it was game on. The Buccaneers were looking to appease their fans ahead of the first Soweto derby of the season on Saturday. Kemit Erasmus had an opportunity to put Pirates in the lead early in the match, but he shot wide of goals. Pirates continued to push forward in search of the opening goal, but Arrows' Namibian goalkeeper, Maximilian Mbayeva, kept his team in the match. In the second half, the visitors came out guns blazing, and in the 52nd minute, Kudawashe Mahachi found the breakthrough for Abafana Bestende. Pirates' hopes were dashed 7 minutes from time when Gladwin Shitolo scored Arrows' second goal of the match.
Arrows looking to ensure it will be that 5 and beautifully buried by the look of it.
It was Pirates' fourth loss in 7 league matches. In another ABSA Premiership match last night, Mamelodi Sundowns played host to Polokwane City in Atteridgeville. After an impressive 6-1 win over Free State Stars in the Telkom knockout over the weekend, a lot was expected from the Brazilians. But Polokwane City had a plan to contain the star-studded Sundowns, and George Chikova pulled off man of the match saves to win a point for his team. The match ended in a goalless draw. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
And now the beautiful thing about living in this day and age is that we've got social media comments about everything that happens. And of course, there were comments about last night. Malusi says we didn't choose a vice captain because we have many leaders. This is Sir Tinkler. This is apparently when Happy Jele went off and nobody wanted to take the captain's armband for Pirates. We then got caught in the counter and they got the 1-0 lead. This is obviously the official Orlando Pirates site, and from the supporters, Makole, Sbeko. This loss by my team does not sit well. Tinkler is frustrating us. Come CAF final, then we will decide. Yes, they seem to be doing well in the CAF Confederations, but not in the league, and seems like they wanted to see if he's going to stay or not. Begging Ngobo. In a short space of time, Orlando Pirates, we had Mike Makap fired, replaced by Joe Frickington, resigned, and Mkanda Were won Champions League. Right, so interesting comments there. I've stopped blaming Tinkler. I want free energy drink. Malusi again wanting free energy drinks. He stopped blaming Tinkler for the results of his favourite team. Now, this, of course, brings us to the log standings, starting with the top 8 in the ABSA Premiership and see exactly what's happening. Okay, let's do results first. We've got 2-0, just a reminder, to Golden Arrows, and then 0-0 against Polokwane City. And then on Friday evening, Black Aces and Chipa United, they lock horns at Nelson Mandela Bay at 8 p.m. You will remember that Ajax matches have been postponed because of that tragic loss of one of their players over the weekend. Now, the top 8 of the ABSA Premiership, 7 matches played by Vets and Platinum Stars. They are currently on top there, 16-15. And then Black Aces and Kaizer Chiefs are in 4th position. Mamelodi Sundowns just knocking on that door, 14 points, just like Kaizer Chiefs. Chiefs have only won 3 matches and drawn 5 so far, very different to last season. And then Ice Cape Town bringing the rear of the top 8. Let's look at the bottom part of the log right now. And right at the bottom, you'll see you've got Jomo Cosmos and Maritzburg United. Jomo Cosmos obviously seemingly missing the NFD. They've not had a single win since they arrived. 7 played, 4 draws, 3 losses. At least they're doing better than Maritzburg United. And that's where we're going to leave it. And number 13 for Orlando Pirates. Now, on to other sports news. 4 corporate executives of World Cup sponsor companies appeared in front of the UK Parliament's Department of Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee. This on Wednesday, the 28th of October. They were subject to a close examination by members of Parliament who were not impressed by the strongly worded statements that the executives said had been sent to FIFA as the allegations of bribes and corruption surfaced.
What do you make of the interview that Sepp Blatter has given to the Russian news service, in which he says that FIFA had planned to hand Russia the World Cup finals before the vote had even been taken?
It's obviously a criticism of Mr Platini, because he says Mr Platini swung some votes to vote for Qatar. But it basically says we wanted Russia and then we wanted Qatar. And it looks like it was fixed. He wanted that before there was any vote. But it does look like he's suggesting that it was all fixed anyway.
It has been unprecedented, in my view, anywhere else in world sport. But it is unacceptable, and it needs to change.
We have formed an opinion that FIFA could not reform itself and that it needed to have eminent third parties to come in to help with the reform process, lead the reform process.
We've been very clear that our position is the same, that the situation is completely unacceptable, that there needs to be a change of leadership before there could be meaningful reform.
You don't seem to be at all worried about anybody stepping into your shoes, so you're very secure in your relationship as sponsors. All 4 of you have confirmed that. Mr Blatter's empire would have collapsed without you. You had him by the short and curlies, and you never thought of saying, these debts have to stop, or my cash is coming out. And you've got 4 weeks to sort it out. And if there's one more debt, our sponsorship goes. You never thought of saying that.
Right now, Springbok coach Hanneke Meyer has made 2 changes to the team to face Argentina in the bronze medal match at the Olympic Stadium in London on Friday. Veteran lock Victor Matfield starts ahead of Loet de Jager, who's been relegated to the bench. Matfield also takes over captaincy from Fourie du Preez, who's replaced by scrum half Ruan Pienaar. Now, Rudy Page makes it onto the bench for the second time at the tournament. This time he's providing cover for Ruan Pienaar. And with a proud history, the Springboks will be hard put to gee up excitement about playing for the bronze medal at the Rugby World Cup. And judging by their coach's reaction to the semi-final loss to Australia, their opponents, Argentina, might just be in the same boat.
The Springboks are still in Guildford. It's a town that is not without its charms. It has the history and the cosy pubs, and also the all-important transport links to London. However, for the Boks, it's a far-flung place where they've been forced to think about everything that went wrong at this Rugby World Cup. And for the younger players, it's been quite some learning curve.
The whole thing we've gone through after losing to Japan, the pressure we've been under, some of the senior players have said it a few times, it's something they've never experienced in their whole careers, and then they're finishing up now, and we're still in the beginning of our careers, so it's something we can take with us for the rest of our careers, and just to know that we've gone through this and we've learned from this, and basically with a bit of a mentality of nothing could get probably worse than this.
But worse than what they've been through thus far must be hanging around and trying to stay motivated for a match that means very little in the bigger scheme of things.
This loss this weekend will give us enough motivation. I think another big motivating factor will be a few of the older guys might be probably their last game for the Boks. So I think we all really want to be playing for their respect and just showing them how much they really mean to South Africa.
The Springboks always said it would take 7 matches to win the World Cup. Well, they're about to play their 7th match, but it's not the final, rather it's the anticlimactic losers final. And there's nothing left for them to do but try to get over Saturday's defeat and make a fist of it one last time before they're relieved of their World Cup duties. Simon Burke, SABC News, Guildford.
Well, that's it from the sports desk. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more news. Stay close.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom here on SABC News. Time for us to shift the focus to what is happening on the continent right now. Let's take a look at the top stories. Tanzania's National Electoral Commission is expected to announce the results of the presidential elections today. This despite a decision by the Commission to cancel the votes cast in Zanzibar amid accusations of cheating there. Yesterday, Tanzania's opposition presidential candidate Edward Lowassa called for a recount of Sunday's votes due to what they called alleged irregularities. The presidential elections were considered the most tightly contested in the country's history. Then Central African Republic yesterday announced that the presidential and parliamentary elections in that country will be held on the 13th of December this year. The nation was initially meant to vote on the 18th of October. Due to conflict, violent conflict that is, in the country's capital, it's been postponed. The anticipated elections are intended to restore order to one of Africa's most unstable countries. The country has faced scores of violence since 2013, when conflict broke out between Muslim and Christian groups there. Then the African Union says South Sudan is violating a number of human rights and international laws. This comes after the AU yesterday released findings of forced cannibalism, mutilation of bodies, and the recruitment of child soldiers in the nation. Conflict broke out in the world's youngest nation in December of 2013, just 3 years after winning independence from Sudan. South Sudan is currently facing food shortages and may reach famine by the end of this year. Now back to our top story on the continent. Tanzania's opposition presidential candidate Edward Lowassa has rejected the presidential poll results and called for a recount. Lowassa says the vote tallying process was marred by irregularities, allegations that have been dismissed now by the country's electoral commission. This as Zanzibar's electoral commission annulled elections in the semi-autonomous island over what it termed gross violations.
Lowassa says the opposition coalition's vote tally put him in the lead and decried what he said was massive rigging by the electoral commission.
We feel the electoral commission is not running these affairs properly. So we are recommending suspension of the vote exercise or a cancellation.
Preliminary results show John Magufuli, the candidate for the ruling CCM party, is ahead of Lowassa. And although CCM says it will contest in court results from 4 constituencies, it welcomed the presidential results, saying they reflected the will of the people.
When a political party goes into an election, you overpromise your supporters victory. And then when victory does not come about because of maybe some mistakes that you have made as political leaders, it's easy to find excuse in saying that we've been rigged.
Although international observers said Sunday's election was free, fair and credible, the opposition says the poll was marred by irregularities. They want the Electoral Commission to stop forthwith the tallying of results. The Electoral Commission dismissed the opposition's allegations. In Zanzibar, the local electoral commission cited gross violations as a reason for cancellation of polls in the islands. On Monday, police fired tear gas to disperse opposition supporters in Zanzibar after the presidential candidate announced himself winner. The semi-autonomous island is always a flashpoint of political tension during elections. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Well, now for an update on Tanzanian elections, we are joined in studio by our foreign editor here at SABC News, Sophie Mukwena. Very good morning to you, Sophie. Thanks for joining us.
Eben.
Sophie, you've just returned from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Just give us a quick view of how you saw the elections that happened there on Sunday, and maybe also the irregularities that are now being called by the opposition there. What do you make of that?
Well, it is indeed a very important election, particularly when you look at the history of Tanzania. This is the election which was hotly contested by both the opposition and the ruling party. You are aware that it's almost 50 years Tanzania has been under the leadership of the Chama Mapinduzi, and for the first time Chama Mapinduzi is facing this competition. It's because that people are disgruntled, people are complaining that they don't see change, and people want change. The issue of corruption again playing itself in that country, but ironically the very same man, Eduardo Lowassa, who was the then member of the Chama Mapinduzi and the vice president who was not appointed or elected to lead the party, but also to be the presidential candidate because there were allegations of corruptions against him, is now the man or the face of the opposition. And the opposition has been complaining about corruption. This was the main issue during election campaign, but unfortunately he is the very same man. Therefore, there's serious tension in that country.
What about the tensions that always seem to flash up around Zanzibar, who's semi-autonomous? There always seems to be, during election times, unhappiness.
Yes, we visited Zanzibar on Friday last week. We spoke to many people in the markets, around the beach, in the areas where people live. They really want to be independent. They want to secede. But unfortunately, the inland, the government, the main government is saying it cannot be Tanzania, it's one Tanzania. And we anticipated that there will be tension during elections. But the funny thing is that you also have an independent electoral commission in that particular country. And people are very polarized. They believe in this secession. And therefore, the credibility of election there indeed will be in question, because when you speak to the commission, the electoral commission of Zanzibar, not the national one, you can pick up some, sentiments around the issue of autonomy. Therefore, we expected that there will be this tension, but also we expected that there will be unhappiness in terms of the outcome of the results.
Now you attended a media briefing of the observers there, and they raised concerns about the country's constitution. They also put some recommendations forward. What were some of these recommendations?
Right now, the opposition leader is saying there must be a recount. In other words, he doesn't accept the process. You don't have a recourse. If the Electoral Commission has pronounced, there's no recourse according to the Constitution. The Constitution was drafted in 1977, so it doesn't really meet the expectation of the country, but also of the region, the SADC region, in terms of protocol on election and good governance, but also the AU protocol on elections and good governance. Therefore, the recommendation from AU, from the SADC, from the Commonwealth, was that there should be an amendment to that clause. There must be a recourse. The other issue is issue of the minorities, albinism. It's a problem. They were scared to go to the polls because they fear intimidation and harassment. And it cannot be that in this day and age, in the continent, people with albinism are being harassed, they are being killed, and they cannot exercise their right. And SADC in particular, which was impressive, was very firm and very hard on that, saying that the government and the stakeholders in that country must do something on issue of albinism so that next election they can be able to exercise their right to vote.
Now, the issue of security and, of course, the possibility of a flare-up of violence tends to hang over Tanzania right now, but the country's always been largely peaceful and quite stable on the East African seaboard. Do you expect things to maybe spiral a little bit out of control in the days and weeks to come?
There will be pockets of violence here and there, but I think the security establishment will be able to manage the situation because, fortunately, as you have indicated, Tanzanians are very peaceful, and all the time they talk about peace, peace before any interest. You had the leader of the opposition calling on his members to be careful and to continue to maintain peace in that country. So I don't expect a serious civil war or serious tensions. I think the authorities will be able to manage the situation.
And final election results, you expect it all to be collated today and be made public?
Yes, today we'll definitely get a clearer picture in terms of numbers. Clearly, it looks like the ruling party is going to win the elections, but it will give us a clearer picture in terms of number of seats in parliament, the representation for all the parties. But tomorrow, it's the big day where indeed a winner will be declared, but also he will receive his participation certificate. Therefore, the real event is tomorrow. But tonight, I can promise we have the crew there. Our bureau in Kenya, they remain behind to continue with the story. So we'll get an update from Sarah Kimani and Johnson Barasa, who are still in Dar es Salaam.
Sophie, thank you very much for joining us. It is so nice to get a real view of somebody that's been on the ground in the country. It's our foreign editor, Sophie Mukwena, has just returned from Tanzania. of course, where final election results are now expected, as Sophie pointed out to us, maybe a little bit later today. Now, the country, Tanzania, is also facing a major cholera outbreak. This has nearly 5,000 cases have been reported, with more than 70 people now dead. The World Health Organization is calling for urgent action to stop the disease from spreading to neighboring countries now. The East African country's largest city, Dar es Salaam, home to about 4 million people, was most affected, with more than 3,500 cases there. Cholera, which is transmitted through drinking contaminated water, causes acute diarrhea. The last time there had been a massive outbreak in East Africa was in the late 1990s. About 200,000 people were infected across 4 countries, and more than 8,000 people lost their lives. Now, joining us on Skype from Tanzania is the World Health Organization representative there, Dr. Rufaro Chatora, who's going to give us an update on the situation. Very good morning to you, Dr. Chatora. Thank you for joining us. Well, we'll try and get back with Dr. Chatora. It looks like we've lost him temporarily. Let's take a look at the front pages from around the African continent now, and hopefully when we've finished with this, Dr. Chatora will be back with us to give us an update on the cholera outbreak there. Let's start in Namibia, where the Namibian reports that government has set in motion a plan to remove the current Trans-Namib and Roads Contractor Company boards of directors after losing confidence in the current board's ability to direct the parastatals in that country. Then we move to Angola, where the Angola de Jornal says Angolan Vice President Manuel Vicente is on a state visit to India and will today participate in a dialogue that will reflect the priorities towards inclusive economic growth to eradicate hunger and poverty, providing adequate resources for sustainable development defined in Agenda 2063 Africa and its 10-year implementation plan. And finally, in Nigeria, the Vanguard reports that senators belonging to the People's Democratic Party and the All Progressive Congress were yesterday preparing for a showdown over different positions on the confirmation of 2 of the 16 ministerial nominees. But I can tell you now that we're going back to, no, we're not going back to Tanzania. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, hopefully we'll have that update. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumela Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
You're back with Newsroom. Unfortunately, we've been unable to connect with Dr. Chitora there in Tanzania to give us a cholera update. We'll endeavour throughout the rest of the show. Maybe we can get him up a little bit later. But right now, it's time for our weekly economic pep talk, where Alvis speaks to Professor Raymond Parsons.
Thank you, Evan. This week, there was three main issues relating to the economy that grabbed the headlines, namely the unemployed figures, the EFF march on the economic transformation, but the one that really stood out was the aftermath of the Fees Must Fall campaign. The student protest campaign and the announcement by government on what combination of financial steps are to be taken to meet the shortfall created by the decision not to increase university fees next year took centre stage. Now, to discuss this and how it relates to our economy, we're joined by economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University Business School. Professor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Now, government announced a mix of financial, well, they haven't announced this yet, but it was supposed to be today, a financial sort of mix of solutions to the issue. But what do you make of this? Because today, or yesterday rather, the minister indicated that free education is not really on the cards, not for everybody.
Well, I think the point of departure has to be that it's been quite a watershed week in many ways. Mm-hmm. But now we've got to translate the rhetoric into reality. And when you start talking about money, that's where the rubber hits the road. And that, of course, is what the government is now, in fact, grappling with, is how do we fund this commitment? And there are three areas, of course. The first is, and I suspect that this will appear in the statement eventually, that they will look at the universities themselves. They'll have to relook at their budgets to see what they can trim. But I think there will be a distinction between the wealthier universities and those that are not so wealthy. So I think there will be an asymmetrical approach to what can be done for them or what they can do in terms of this decision. The second and more important, of course, is that the government will have to reprioritize its own spending. Following on the mini-budget itself, it's clear we have a very tight economic situation, and I think that's probably why it's not been possible for the government to, in fact, make that announcement today. If you accept that in the SNAP debate in Parliament was only 2 days ago. So I think the 2.6 billion sounds a lot. It can be found, but it will call for the scalpel in some areas of government spending. That must be the first port of call, where you can reprioritize certain things that might have been nice to do. You now have got to concentrate on what you have to do, and obviously this commitment is something that has to be addressed. And then the third proposal is, well, are we heading for some higher taxes? I would say that's the last port of call for the moment. We have a committee, that's the Davis Committee, looking at tax, and if there are proposals about a wealth tax, that's where it's got to go. They must look at it and set it in the broader context of what South Africa can afford to do. So those are the tough decisions that I think are now indeed facing government. So
do you get a sense that the financial burden and the pressure will be shared between the stakeholders, whether it's government, private institutions and of course business?
Well, I think certainly in the first instance it's going to be shared between the government and the universities. The private sector role, which I think one must also comment on, is one where there are already a large number of bursaries and scholarships being offered by corporates. And then, of course, there is the corporate social investment programs of many companies. And that might be an area where there can be some engagement between business and government as to what more might be possible. But the main areas will have to be what kind of outcome can you get in the discussions now between government, the Department of Higher Education, the National Treasury, and the universities, and what adjustments will be feasible given what the commitment is.
Now, what is the possible short-term solution for 2016, would you think? Because the 10% or the 10.5% by the universities is off the table right now.
No, that's right. So that's what the government is engaged in now, is to see how do they square that circle. I think it's possible. It sounds a big number, but it's possible. But it is a short-term solution. And what is equally important now is the announcement by government that the presidential task team, which has been looking at the bigger picture of higher education, and I want to just emphasize, we mustn't just focus on tertiary education. We've now got an opportunity, we've got some time, if we take care of next year, we've got some time in which to address the broader issue of indeed the post-school education and training. That brings in much more than obviously tertiary education, or that is the immediate priority, because by world standards, we're spending a vast amount of money on education, but have we divided it up equally, or not equally, but have we divided it up well between primary education and indeed tertiary education? Now that is one of the longer term issues of the restructuring of the educational system, to address some of the structural issues that need to be resolved, that will not be resolved simply by writing out a bigger check for next year.
Now the students are demanding more. They want free education. Is that a reality? That's the same question we ask our viewers today.
Well, I think one must hear what the Minister of Higher Education has said. He's qualified it. He said, yes, it's possible, but not for everyone. I mean, there are students and families and parts of the population that can afford to pay their way. So the cleverness will lie in devising a system which will address the most needy, to give them access, and if necessary, to relieve them of the burden of debt and so forth for the future. It's possible to be very creative about the longer term, and I'm hoping that we'll use that opportunity to send a message out that will build confidence in what we're going to do about the educational system in the future years.
Prof. Philip, briefly, your final thoughts.
Well, I'm reminded of a saying by the late Joe Slovo, who said, the slogans don't bake bread or build houses. Neither will they just create by a magic wand the free education we want. There are tough decisions to be taken by all stakeholders to successfully turn this situation around for the future. We can do it, we must do it.
Professor, thank you so much, as usual, joining us here in studio.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Parsons joining us here in the studio from the Northwest Business School. But right now, it's over to Eben and Paul.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've run out of time a little bit. We don't have time now. We're going to try and put it in the next hour. Otherwise, I want to ask Paul to come back. We're going to talk about the strange circular object that were hovering in the clouds over Midrand, which many said was supposed to be a UFO and caused quite a buzz on social media. But unfortunately, in this hour, we don't have time. We'll try and do it back. Well, try and do it in the next hour. Otherwise, we'll bring Paul back tomorrow to talk about that. Some interesting photos. I think you'll enjoy that. We're going to take a short little break. When we come back, we are complete up-to-date at the top of the hour. See you then.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Morning Live sets the agenda for the day.
We bring you the latest local and international news.
We are on the ball with all your sports activities and results.
We give you the latest business update.
We bring you the latest weather every time.
Watch Morning Live every weekday morning at 6 o'clock, bringing you everything you need to know before you go. Shap shap, tada.
We ask tough questions.
Have you spoken to the president about resigning?
We ask hard questions.
What you're trying to do requires a lot of money and we don't have money.
We ask quick questions.
A quick one. You are aware that the PIC has now been banned by the IEC?
I'm aware.
And you are also aware that it has been banned because of you?
We ask good questions.
Are you an infiltrated organization?
We also ask funny questions.
Is it safe to eat your chicken?
All the questions, all the time, right here on Question Time, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sillo Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time on this Wednesday, 28th of October 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. Now, let's take a look at all your headlines this hour. The Higher Education Minister says that the announcement of how the 2.6 billion rand shortfall to fund the 0% fee increase will no longer be made this afternoon. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is in the process of conducting investigations along with the Director of Public Prosecutions into the shooting of 34 miners by police at Marikana in 2012. And Tanzania's National Electoral Commission will announce the results of presidential elections in Dar es Salaam today. Those are all your headlines. Let's take a look at your top story this hour. Moving further afield, over 30 African heads of state are in the Indian capital, New Delhi, to discuss ties with India. President Jacob Zuma has already met with Indian business people and encouraged them to invest in South Africa.
Over 30 leaders from the continent arriving in New Delhi is the third India-Africa summit since 2008. Economic ties top the agenda. South Africa is on a mission to rekindle trade. There's been a close to $4 billion decline since 2011.
I wish to remind that government, in its efforts to remove hurdles in doing business in South Africa, has taken a decision to award a 10-year BRICS business visa for qualifying business persons. As leaders of the Indian business community, you have throughout history led the development of critical trading routes that have joined our two countries.
Indian businesses say they are keen to invest in South Africa and the continent. Known for its digital revolution, it wants to share its expertise, especially in poor areas. President Zuma also held talks with his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi. They spoke about escalating economic relations between the two countries. As these African leaders gather here for the India-Africa Summit, South Africa is also taking advantage of spreading the message that Africa is open for business. and South Africa remains the gateway to the continent. Mzwandile Mbej, SABC News, New Delhi, India.
Now for the latest, we go to our SABC presidential correspondent, Mzwandile Mbej, who was in India. Very good morning to Mzwai. Has the summit started already?
Thank you very much, Elvis, and a very good morning to our viewers at home. Yes, the summit is underway here in New Delhi. As you have indicated, over 40 heads of state are attending the summit. We saw earlier on the Prime Minister of India open the summit officially, and several leaders have spoken, and the theme is renewing partnership. These two countries, rather this country and the continent, represent about 1/3 of the world's population, which means there's a huge potential in terms of trade between them. Yes, there is trade that is happening between them, but it's not to its full potential, given the number of people that are in both these countries. Several presidents as well have spoken, speaking of the need of increasing economic ties, because historically these countries have always been together. You'd know that South Africa and India
and it seems like we've lost Mzwandile there on that particular line. We apologize for that connection. We'll see if we can get an update from him a little later. Meanwhile, the Higher Education Ministry says that the announcement of how the 2.6 billion rand shortfall to fund the 0% fee increase will no longer be made this afternoon. The ministry says talks are still underway between the Presidency, Department and the National Treasury. Meanwhile, the Higher Education Minister, Bladen Nzimande, has told Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education that free university education won't be possible for everybody.
Is for the poor. It's not for everyone. Those who are calling for everyone, we can't afford that as a country, and wealthy students must pay.
Well, let's go back now to our presidential correspondent, Mzwandile Mbej, who's in India. We do apologize for that earlier breakup. Mzwandile, a very good morning once again. Now, the point of discussion for today, what is on the agenda?
Thank you very much, Elvis. Sorry for that breakup in sound. But what the Prime Minister of India has been saying to the African leaders, and the African leaders have been saying to him, is that these two people, or rather this country and the continent, they need to increase economic ties. One of the things that the Prime Minister here announced was that he's going to be giving Africa about 7.8 billion rand in development aid, which was the news that was really warmly welcomed. And then he said India is prepared to train as many as 50,000 young Africans so that they can gain experience, especially in the ICT sector, and then they can go and plow back in Africa.
When is the conference coming to an end?
You would know that, Elvis, the conference has been going on since the 26th of this month. It started with the senior officials, and then it was the ministerial, and then today is the summit, which means is the heads of state and government. So today is the last day, so we expect them to come with a declaration really that will renew partnership between Africa and India. And you know, these represent about 1/3 of the world's population, with India 1.2 billion people and Africa about 1.1. So they've agreed that yes, of them, but it's not sufficient given the opportunities and the potential that exists between them. So we expect that when it concludes today, there will be a declaration of renewed partnership with the view of increasing economic ties.
Mzwandile, is this perhaps in retaliation, this particular summit, in retaliation to the influx of the Chinese government and the Chinese companies into Africa?
You know, Elvis, there have been many interpretations to a summit of this nature, but I can tell you that this is the third summit between these two. The first summit was in 2008. It happened in India, And then the second one was in 2011. It happened in Ethiopia. So this is the third one now. So what is happening is that the relationship already exists, but what they want to do is to make sure that they strengthen it. It's possible that with China coming thick and fast in Africa, so other countries elsewhere in the world are taking note, and definitely they wouldn't want to be left behind, especially if they do have a know-how to help a continent like ours, which still needs so much assistance in terms of developing ourselves, in terms of education, in terms of even developing our agriculture. You know that about 60% of Africa's land, very fertile, just lies fallow because there's no expertise, there are no people to work it, but we have so much hunger. So given that a country like India, which has developed sophisticated skills when it relates to this matter, so it would definitely take the opportunity, Elvis.
Mzwandile, thank you so much for that update. That was Mzwandile Mbeje. He's in India, giving us an update on that summit. Now, security remains tight at Wits University following yesterday's renewed violent protest. The university management has described a student demand for the institution to be closed until Monday as unreasonable. The university reopened yesterday after a 2-week disruption due to the protest against tuition fees. But some students blockaded the entrance to the university, forcing police to fire stun grenades and rubber bullets to disperse them. A small faction of Wits students are still protesting against the outsourcing of cleaning staff. Now, the Gauteng Health MEC Kudani Mashlangu has taken a very bold step against rogue employees. She has fired 45 public servants in the department accused of fraud and theft. In a statement released yesterday, Mashlangu issued a stern warning against employees involved in corrupt activities. Now, for more on this, we're joined in studio by the Gauteng Health MEC Kudani Mashlangu. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis, and thank you for having us.
45 employees fired. That's a very bold step. Some might call you the Iron Lady.
I don't know whether that's... the important point that I really want to emphasize is that we want to encourage those civil servants who work very hard, who sometimes get digressed by the few who do wrong things. And these individuals, some of them get involved, about 35 of them in unprotected strike, and about 8 of them were involved in different things, refusing to transport patient. You are employed to transport patient, and you said you refuse at a time we're supposed to performing the duty. Some of them were using hospital stamps to use fraudulently to support fraudulent birth certificates, and all of those things. We must really stem out fraud and corruption in our hospitals, because those things, they do them not in the benefit of the public service or of the patients, but at the benefit of themselves. And that is why it's important to send a very strong message out there and to say we will no longer tolerate what has been going on.
What kind of evidence have you got against these employees?
Remember, for every situation, before we get to this point where I signed off, there is disciplinary procedures in the hospitals where people are called upon, including the individuals who were accused of this. And sometimes, in many instances, most of them have confirmed that indeed I'm guilty of the charge, I need a second chance and all of that. And the important thing is you give a second chance to someone you know that they've shown remorse, and you know someone who is willing to change and mend their ways. But people who continue to be arrogant and who continue to want to do things, you definitely have to take a firm action. I mean, sometimes when I walk to a hospital, I hear people in the lift, because some people don't know me, and I walk in the lift and I hear them organizing an operation of how they're going to take X or Y out of the hospital, and I'll just call someone and say, this is what I just overheard in the lift, please be on the alert. And in some instances, that's how things are discovered. Or any of us who work in the department, or a citizen who brings information to us, that's how we pick up these things. And once the hospital processes are complete, then if the employee appeals, it comes to the office. We have got a legal team that we have appointed of external people who then sit and preside over these matters and listen again to these individuals. And finally, then those reports come to me to agree or to disagree, or then the final letter is signed by myself.
45 employees, it's a huge gap to be filled. How are you going to fill that void of those employees?
Remember, one of the things that we have to be very firm about, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a nurse, you're a cleaner, when you do wrong things, we must all take face consequences for our action. Yes, indeed, there may be a gap that will be caused by these individuals, but I know for a fact that if we advertise for X number of jobs, we get over-subscription of people who are interested. I do not have worries about filling the posts. We are going to fill them as soon as possible. Those that we've advertised, those that we haven't, particularly professionals, nurses or doctors and all of those we've got what you call walk-ins. All we have to do is to verify with the professional body you belong to, then we hire you.
Now, some people might be saying that government is very slow in dealing with corruption, but in this case, do you think that you've proved them wrong?
Yes, we've proved them wrong. This is not the first time we are doing this, and I've been to the studio before, and we've, I think this year alone, we've not fired less than 100 people in the department for different transgression, and in some instances, it included doctors and nurses as well.
MEC, thank you so much for your time and coming through to the studio.
Thank you.
That was MEC, Gauteng Health MEC, Kodani Mshlangu, in discussion with us. Right now, it's over to Eben for more in-depth interviews and reviews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Salvis. Now, residents of KwaZulu-Natal must brace themselves for tariff increases on water during drought conditions. This, as the province continues to endure low rainfall. It's planned to be implemented in July of next year. The Umgeni Water and Umhlatuze Water Boards will also be disbanded, and one board will be formed in order to effectively provide services to all areas struggling with access to water in KwaZulu-Natal. Meanwhile, water restrictions are still in place in certain parts of the province. Now, to talk to us a little bit about the situation from Umgeni Water, we have the General Manager, Engineering and Scientific Services, Mr. Steve Gillum. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning to you.
The shortages are real. Just give us a quick update what the situation is like right now.
Yeah, most definitely the drought has been causing a stranglehold, and a lot of the smaller dams and supply systems from the smaller areas are certainly struggling already. The larger supply systems like that supply the Durban, Pietermaritzburg area are looking stressed at the moment, and by next year we're going to be in difficulties there as well.
Now, what kind of plans are you having? Are you putting in place to deal with this crisis? And then if you continue to have low rainfall throughout the summer, what's the outlook then like?
The outlook, according to the weather forecasters, is not particularly promising. So really the main initiative is for people to start conserving water. We can put other smaller means in place, try and supplement from other systems and other rivers, but by and large, it comes down to people tightening their belts and consumers using less water at such stressful times.
You're talking about tariff increases in July of next year if the situation continues. What kind of tariff increases do you think will be necessary?
There has been the possibility of a drought levy that has been mooted. It is not something that is a definite yet. It is still something that needs to be consulted with all the consumers and the customers for that. But it is really to look at dealing with, already a lot of money has been spent on trying to mitigate and provide measures, and going forward, as we do more, the funds are needed to do that. But as I said earlier, it is something still that needs to be discussed. That is just an idea at this point in time.
And the drought itself, how is it affecting farmers in the wider KwaZulu-Natal?
The farmers are the one that have taken a big knock. The rains haven't come when they've needed it. We've seen cattle dying all over the place with lack of water. Certainly the sugarcane industry is taking a knock. The sugarcane is not looking like it should be at this time of the year. So the agricultural sector is definitely feeling this, and has been feeling it from last year already.
Now, the talk is around the amalgamation of the Umgeni and the Umhlatuze water boards. Tell us about this move, and what do you hope it's going to bring? What kind of solutions will it bring?
The idea has been on the table in the discussions for a number of years now already. It's not a new idea. It is something, though, that the Minister of Water and Sanitation has brought to the fore and intends moving forward with as early as the middle of next year. It is really to consolidate and unify the way water delivery is done in the province at a bulk level. You know, bring the economies of scale of the two entities together, ensure that we have a wall-to-wall type of delivery model that is uniform and brings the best resources from both entities together in terms of delivering a good service.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. That's the General Manager, Engineering and Scientific Sciences at Umgeni Water, where water shortages continue in the KwaZulu-Natal province. That, of course, is Steve Gillum that we were talking to there now. Music history will be made during two very special concerts due to take place at the Linda Auditorium in Johannesburg this week, when the Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra will perform together with their KwaZulu-Natal counterparts. Now, the KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestra. Now, that was last night and tonight. These concerts symbolically herald a new chapter for the Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra and the start of a new relationship with their sister orchestra in KwaZulu-Natal, as a result of signing a memorandum of understanding between the two boards of the orchestras. Janine Lee caught up with the CEO and Artistic Director of the KZN Philharmonic Orchestra, Bongani Tembe.
Yes, indeed. We're excited about the relationship between the Johannesburg Philharmonic and the KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic. It is good for classical music in South Africa. It is good for also education, because both orchestras are very much committed to helping integrate music into the learning experience of our kids.
And now I believe you've got some exciting news for us regarding that. First.
Yes, for the first time ever, the two orchestras will make music together, side by side, on the 28th and the 29th of October at the Linda Auditorium at Wits. At 8 o'clock, the Johannesburg Philharmonic and the KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestra will join forces and do a historic concert.
Bongani, so share with us what the two orchestras will explore.
Joining the two orchestras allow us to do a major work by Gustav Mahler, Symphony No. 5. It's a massive work that goes on for about 70 minutes, more than an hour.
Wow.
So we're able to do this by joining both orchestras. So that's going to be fantastic. And in the first half, we'll do Mozart's Clarinet Concerto in A, which is a beautiful clarinet concerto, which will be performed by our principal clarinetist in the KZN Philharmonic. So it's a popular program. It's a historic program. The first half is light and beautiful, and the second half with Mahler will be really massive. The Linda Auditorium will shake on the 28th and 29th of October 2015.
And what kind of audiences are you expecting? Will they have a sophisticated music palette, or is it for anybody?
Well, music is for everybody. Yes, CEOs and marketing directors of different companies in Johannesburg, tourists will be there, but the regular people, we're passing in some kids from Soweto for the rehearsal in the morning, and so it's open to everybody.
What challenges come with the two orchestras performing together?
Well, the first challenge is that who is sitting where, who is leading which part, because this is the first time. So you can imagine, because each orchestra has got its own leader. Now you've got to choose and all of that. And the stage is not that very big at the Linda Auditorium. So we've got more than 100 musicians, but we can only fit in 86. So we'd had to make some choices. So, of course, that's a little bit can be a challenge, but both musicians are enthusiastic, and at the end we decided, because we're essentially going to Johannesburg to support the musicians of the JPO who've suffered for so long, we should allow them to lead.
And for the viewers, where can they get tickets? Are sales open?
Yes, sales are open. They must go to CompuTicket. We expect tickets to go very, very fast, because it's a historic thing, and Mahler 5 you don't hear every day. And so they can go to CompuTicket. The subscribers of the Johannesburg Philharmonic could call the JPO office to secure their seats and their favorite seats. And so it's going to be really a blockbuster concert.
Bongani, thank you so much, and best of luck for the concert later this month.
Thanks, Janine.
Maybe you'll send some tickets to P.
Definitely, you'll be there.
Yeah, that interview was done by Janine Lee, of course. Now, going back down to KwaZulu-Natal, Durban audiences are in for a treat as Simi Aref takes his one-man show to the coastal city. Simi, rated as a top up-and-coming young comedian in the country. He's at the Loft at the Playhouse Company from earlier this week, the 27th. That was on Tuesday, and he's there until the 1st of November. Now, Simi joins us from our Durban studio. Good morning to you, Simi. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Urban. How are you? I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much, mate. Me, I'm a big fan too. I see you at the cricket. I see you all over. I see you in ads. You're everywhere now, man.
Yes, finally, someone has recognized me from the cricket. Yes. Funny story, Urban, you don't know. I once did an excursion when I was a journalist, studying to become a journalist, and you took me around the SABC studios. It was amazing. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, mate. Nice one. Love it. Tell me about your show in Durban. You know, you're running into the weekend. What can people expect?
Well, first of all, it's going very well. I want to thank all the people from Durban that actually came out to watch it, because Durban is a very tough place to sell during the week. So if anybody comes out, you're always surprised. And the last shows I've done so far, I've done 2. I'm hoping to do 1 tonight as well, and Thursday and Friday and Saturday. But they've been great. The audiences have been good. I've been loving it. I've been having fun on stage, and I think that's the key sometimes, is just to have fun on stage.
Your style, how do you, if you had to put yourself forward, what's your style of comedy?
You know, I'm just like a young Muslim kid trying to find out what we're doing in this world. Like, I don't do this I don't subscribe to the media calling all of us like terrorists and stuff like that. I'm not saying that you guys do it, but I'm just like, that's how Muslim people are portrayed. I'm a 27-year-old kid that stays with his mom and dad. So I'm hardly harmful to anybody. In fact, some people look at me as someone that needs to get out the house. So that's the type of stuff I deal with. I deal with social networks. I deal with my dad trying to understand how to use a phone, my mom having a curfew. Those are the type of things I deal with in my show right now.
You've been voted by Forbes Africa magazine. They profiled you as worth keeping an eye out for. How does that make you feel, and what do you reckon then?
Well, first of all, I want to say shout out to Forbes, because that is a legitimate magazine. That is a legitimate magazine. It's not fake. So I want to tell them thank you so much for the shout out. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's no pressure, because like I've been doing it for a while. I've been doing comedy. I did comedy through Varsity, all the different varsities I've done, and just now I'm taking the biggest step of just doing my own shows. I just want to make people laugh, man. That's about it in life. I don't want to drive fancy cars and live in fancy houses. I want to make people laugh around the world, but I want to start off at home, right here. And I come from Durban, so I'm starting at the place I started.
Tell you what, if you make people laugh, you're going to have to drive the big cars. It's just how it is, man.
I hope so. I hope so.
No, Stay at Home Son. That's the show, am I right?
Yeah, that's the name, Stay at Home Son.
Tell me a little bit about the name.
The reason why I call it Stay at Home Son is because I feel like they don't tell Muslim kids that, you know, you stay with your parents until a certain age, when all of a sudden, and they never tell you, you're the parent and they're the children now. So like now I'm a stay-at-home son of 2 parents that I'm trying to look after and afford and pay rent and buy groceries. It's tough. It's very tough being a parent. I wish they told me earlier that I'll have to start looking after them.
You're going to have to do the washing and the dishes at some point in your own place. I mean, this is how the world works.
I do. It's a tough thing. I have to tuck my mother and father in at night.
That's fantastic. Listen, who inspires you in South Africa right now? Everyone's, of course, loving Trevor Noah, but we've got a very healthy scene,
Yeah, we do have a very healthy scene. Trevor's a big inspiration. Also, Riyad Musa, who put me on all of his shows when he went on a tour. He taught me how to do the basics of comedy and how to sell tickets and how to construct jokes. And then, like, a lot of my friends, Robbie Collins is open for Trevor Noah, Dylan Oliphant, another guy is open for Trevor, and all the guys behind the scene, like a guy called Osman Ali Osman from Blue Blood Entertainment, who's helped me out producing my show. Then, of course, you get a guy called Ryan Hardith, who's working with Comedy Central now, and I'll be doing a festival with them. And then, so those are the guys behind the scenes, and those are the guys that inspire me to be better because they give me the platforms.
And where do you want to be next year, or 5 years' time?
I definitely want to be in the UK. I want to hit Edinburgh. I want to go to the Montreal Festival. I went this year, but I want to perform on that circuit. I feel like I'm at a good stage now where I can start doing that stuff. And then I'll come back home every 8 months because there's people around the world. We can make all of these people laugh.
Simi, I love your work, my friend.
Thank you
the
so
next
much,
big
man.
thing, the next big thing. Thanks for joining us. I say salam alaikum
Thank
to
you.
you, my
No,
brother.
thank you very much, Evan. Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
Simi Aref. The next big thing in comedy, not just in South Africa. We think he's going to be one that's going to go global as well. A man who's staying very much local at the moment is Kendall Mahamate with a sports update.
Thank you very much, Evan. Exactly. That's exactly where we are. We are in Johannesburg, and it's sports time. The very first story, as Evan just said, is local football. Mamelodi Sundowns played to a goalless draw against Polokwane City in Atteridgeville last night. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates suffered yet another blow in the Absa Premiership following a 2-0 loss to Golden Arrows.
Pirates and Arrows observed a moment of silence in respect of the late Ajax Cape Town defender Cecil Lolo. After that, it was game on. The Buccaneers were looking to appease their fans ahead of the first Soweto derby of the season on Saturday. Kemit Erasmus had an opportunity to put Pirates in the lead early in the match, but he shot wide of goals. Pirates continued to push forward in search of the opening goal, but Arrows' Namibian goalkeeper, Maximilian Mbayeva, kept his team in the match. In the second half, the visitors came out guns blazing, and in the 52nd minute, Kudawashe Mahachi found the breakthrough for Abafana Bestende. Pirates' hopes were dashed 7 minutes from time when Gladwin Shitolo scored Arrows' second goal of the match.
Arrows looking to ensure it will be that 5, and beautifully buried by the look of it.
It was Pirates' fourth loss in 7 league matches. In another Absa Premiership match last night, Mamelodi Sundowns played host to Polokwane City in Atteridgeville. After an impressive 6-1 win over Free State Stars in the Telkom knockout over the weekend, a lot was expected from the Brazilians. But Polokwane City had a plan to contain the star-studded Sundowns, and George Chikova pulled off man of the match saves to win a point for his team. The match ended in a goalless draw. Ntutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now, this brings us to the results of World's Lock Standing. Let's start with the results first from last night's matches. Quick summary. 2-0 loss for Orlando Pirates at Orlando Stadium against Golden Arrows. 0-0 Polokwane City Mamelodi Sundowns. And then on Friday evening at 8 p.m. at the Nelson Mandela Bay, it's Chippa United against Black Aces. We now look at the Lock Standing, starting with the top 8. And in the top 8, as you can see, from 1 through to 8, we've got Bidvest Vets, Platinum Stars, Black Aces, Kaizer Chiefs and Sundowns. And then Ajax Cape Town bringing up the rear of the top 8. We go through to the latter half of the Absa Premiership, and we've got Jomo Cosmos and Maritzburg United. They propping up the bottom, and they're sitting on number 15 and number 16. Then Free State Stars, Chippa United and SuperSport United are 9, 10, 11 and 12. Orlando Pirates sitting 13th. Now, going on to other sports news and going international this time, 4 corporate executives of World Cup sponsor companies appeared in front of the UK Parliament's Department of Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee on Wednesday the 28th of October. They were subject to a close examination by members of Parliament who were not impressed by the strongly worded statements that the executives said had been sent to FIFA as allegations of bribes and corruptions surfaced. Let's take a listen.
Of the interview that Sepp Blatter has given to the Russian news service, in which he says that FIFA planned to hand Russia the World Cup finals before the vote had even been taken.
It's obviously a criticism of Mr Platini, because he says Mr Platini swung some votes to vote for Qatar, but it basically says we wanted Russia and then we wanted Qatar. And it looks like it was fixed. He wanted that before there was any vote, but it does look like it's suggesting that it was all fixed anyway.
It has been unprecedented, in my view, anywhere else in world sport, but it is unacceptable and it needs to change.
We have formed an opinion that FIFA could not reform itself and that it needed to have eminent third parties to come in to help with the reform process, lead the reform process.
We've been very clear that our position is the same, that the situation is completely unacceptable, that there needs to be a change of leadership before there could be meaningful reform.
You don't seem to be at all worried about anybody stepping into your shoes, so you're very secure in your relationship as sponsors. All 4 of you have confirmed that. Mr. Blatter's empire would have collapsed without you. You had him by the short and curlies, and you never thought of saying, these deaths have to stop, or my cash is coming out. And you've got 4 weeks to sort it out. And if there's one more death, our sponsorship goes. You never thought of saying that.
Now, Springbok coach Hanneke Meyer has made 2 changes to the team to face Argentina in the bronze medal match at the Olympic Stadium in London this coming Friday. First up, veteran lock Victor Matfield starts ahead of Loet de Jager, who's been relegated to the bench. Matfield takes over the captaincy from Fourie du Preez, who's replaced by scrum half Ruan Pienaar. Rudy Page makes it onto the bench for the second time at the tournament, and he's providing cover for Ruan Pienaar. Now, with their history, their very proud history, the Springboks will be hard put to gee up excitement about playing for the bronze medal at the Rugby World Cup. And judging by their coach's reaction to the semi-final loss to Australia, their opponents, Argentina, might just be in the same boat.
The Springboks are still in Guildford. It's a town that is not without its charms. It has the history and the cosy pubs, and also the all-important transport links to London. However, for the Boks, it's a far-flung place where they've been forced to think about everything that went wrong at this Rugby World Cup. And for the younger players, it's been quite some learning curve.
The whole thing we've gone through after losing to Japan, the pressure we've been under, some of the senior players have said it a few times, it's something they've never experienced in their whole careers, and then they're finishing up now, and we're still in the beginning of our careers, so it's something we can take with us for the rest of our careers, and just to know that we've gone through this and we've learned from this, and basically with a bit of a mentality of nothing could get probably worse than this.
But worse than what they've been through thus far must be hanging around and trying to stay motivated for a match that means very little in the bigger scheme of things.
This loss this weekend will give us enough motivation. I think another big motivating factor will be a few of the older guys might be probably their last game for the Boks. So I think we'll really want to be playing for their respect and just showing them how much they really mean to South Africa.
The Springboks always said it would take 7 matches to win the World Cup. Well, they're about to play their 7th match, but it's not the final, rather it's the anticlimactic losers final. And there's nothing left for them to do but try to get over Saturday's defeat and make a fist of it one last time before they're relieved of their World Cup duties. Simon Burke, SABC News, Guildford.
And in our final story, Rafael Nadal advanced to quarterfinals of the Basel International on Wednesday when he beat 24-year-old Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Now, Dimitrov got off to a fine start, but Nadal, who's shown his pedigree in recent times, managed to see him off with his trademark power tennis. The Spaniard won the match when Dimitrov netted a lob that Nadal had sent his way. Meanwhile, second seed Stan Wawrinka won the first set against big serving Croatian Ivo Karlovic, but was beaten 3-6, 7-6, 6-4 as Karlovic used his combination of aces and powerful forehands against the Swiss. Wawrinka could not rely on his trademark backhand to save him, with Karlovic winning the tiebreak in the second set to level the score. He won 6-4 in the third with 3 straight aces to finish and advance to the second round. And that's where we leave it with the sport. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
An ancient culture carried to these shores a lifetime ago, fusing, merging, growing to transcend lines, cultures and sound, embodied in a voice that speaks to you without forgetting. Do you listen to it? Lotus FM shared the experience.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. never, ever stop. Dauntless, the all-new Audi Q7.
Welcome back. Now for something completely different. A picture of a strange circular-shaped object over clouds in Midrand here in Gauteng, which many said was a supposed UFO, had social media abuzz this whole week. There's a picture. Now the question on whether or not, with Tsietse Monare, who's standing by here, he doesn't believe in it. The question is, do aliens exist? Well, it's baffled humans long before many of the conspiracies, Roswell and widely adored fictional films such as E.T. Just recently in South Africa, this picture of that unidentified flying object, or UFO, as some might say, went viral on the net, sparking much interest about the extraterrestrial world. Now, he's not an astronaut, but Tsietse Monare is here to share some of his thoughts and some of his interesting theories about the existence of extraterrestrial life. We are also joined via Skype from Somerset West in the Western Cape by the founder of the UFO Research South Africa, Gert Jordan. Gert, very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Gert, that picture, before I come to Paul, I know he's a skeptic. That picture that was on this week, that was a fake, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was definitely. It was definitely Photoshop. When I first saw the picture, it was, first thing in my mind what popped up was, yeah, that's a fake, definitely. That's been Photoshopped, definitely.
And how do you spot a hoax? I mean, if we can look at the picture there. How do you spot a hoax like this? I mean, it looks legit. When you look at it the first time, it's okay, that's definitely the M1. That's definitely the clouds, and there's definitely something behind it. How do you spot a hoax?
There are many ways, but to see it at first, to spot it at first is, let's say, for instance, anybody who did SWAT graphic designing would immediately tell you that is definitely a fake, or even special effects. People who SWAT special effects could tell you that. And I did SWAT some graphic designing, and when I saw that, that told me that it's a fake, definitely. But the thing that why we say it's a fake is because if you look at it, how many people is in that one picture?
Yeah.
And we only got this one picture. Why is there not more people who submitted it, you know, different angles, if you can put it that way, who submit a picture of that?
Or who even made a fuss about it on social media and so forth. We live in that time. But I want to come to Tsietse Monare and just ask him, when you see that kind of thing, what's your reaction?
Well, with this picture specifically, first of all, I thought, I mean, why is the biker not indicating? Because he's changing lanes, you know?
Yes.
He should have indicated. And two...
This is Joburg, man. People don't indicate.
And two, I looked at the clouds. And this week, we really haven't had such beautiful clouds, actually. I mean...
yes, you're right. But we're waiting for rain still,
Yeah, we're waiting for rain. And the one time you'd have clouds, like it's definitely not in the morning. Would have been later into the afternoon or early in the evening because it's time for thunderstorms and so on.
Yeah.
And of course, if you did some graphic designing, if you studied some stuff, you would know.
That's the theory. I love your work. But the existential question is, do you believe that there are extraterrestrial life in this universe that is even much smarter than us?
Well, I don't want to offend anybody just yet.
Maybe we get deflected to Gert. Tell us about your experience. I understand you get lots of people that send you pictures almost daily.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's we get about 10 to 15 sightings a week, which can mostly be explained weather phenomenon, meteors, satellites even. And some people sent us pictures of planes in the distance, and you know, then we just say, well, that's a plane, you know. And but what we do on our website, we give it to the public to make their opinion. It's not up to us; it's up to them. It's if you want to believe or not. But the question begs if there's life beyond Earth. Most likely, yes, because if you think about it, the universe is big. And anything is possible. There you have billions of chances to start evolution or life on another planet.
The universe is infinite. It's not big. It's so big we can't even see, we can't even imagine how big it is, Paul.
Yeah,
and
but
for you, as a man, a science man, you should know that.
Yeah, but why haven't they made any contact with us? Why haven't they called us? Why haven't... You know, the thing about evolution is that it's quite predictable. And, you know, the stronger ones always want to take over the smaller ones. And we've heard how important our planet is or how unique our planet is. Why aren't they here trying to tap into our resources?
Maybe they're giving us a miss because we are not highly developed enough, Paul. Maybe they're farming us. Maybe we're like a fish tank. Maybe we're somebody's fish tank. Imagine that.
I think most people are just afraid that we actually are alone. Maybe we're feeling a bit alone.
There's no chance of us being alone, Tsietse Monare. There's billions of stars in our galaxy, just like our sun, and there are billions of galaxies, trillions even, galaxies just like ours. Yeah. So how can you tell me we're in the backwater of some Milky Way galaxy, the only intelligent life on the planet? Gert, last words to you on that note.
Yeah, it's true what you say. There is billions and billions of stars, and you have billions and billions of chances, like I said. If you look at Earth, you would know that the history of evolution it's a few things that happened, like little accidents that led up to our species being the strongest. But like I said, you have millions and millions of stars with millions and millions of planets evolving around them. Pick your chance. You know,
pick your chance. I just want to know where where does all the technology come from that we've advanced so much in the last percentage of our lifetimes on this planet, Paul? In the last percentage of our lifetime, we have increased our technology exponentially. I'm sure it's the human brain that's just advancing, isn't it?
Of course, we are getting smarter and smarter, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, you know, we all just need to accept that we are in charge and we are the only ones here.
Tsietse Monare is happy. That is me. Oh, there's a planet named after me as well. Anyhow, but Tsietse Monare still believes that home and Aledi is where we come from. I disagree strongly with you, Gert. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to have to speak to you privately at some point, Gert. Thank you once again for that contribution from Somerset West in the Western Cape. He is the founder of UFO Research South Africa. Interesting one we've had this week. But Tsietse is just going to disappear like an alien and do the weather for you next.
Poof. Guys, I can't do the weather. It's not loaded on. I can't do the weather.
Play the recording. He doesn't have the live weather with him. So let's play the recording from earlier and have a look at the weather. Otherwise, we can wrap the show with our co-presenters that are here. We've got some wonderful questions or responses to our question of the day. We'll do the weather afterwards. Let's take a look at our question of the day. Back to serious business. We asked a serious question today, Tsietse. Is free education at all possible in South Africa? That is the question we asked. We've had lots of responses. Anine, people are very passionate about this question, isn't it?
Quite a lot of responses this evening, but also some mixed responses. So we say Keith saying free education is possible, but who gets to fund it? The burden is pushed to the taxpayers.
It's a legitimate question.
Yeah. And then we've got Odette Povey, and Odette Povey reckons free education is plausible based on financial management and revised tertiary standards. Government needs to scale it in stages. Of course, any big thing you'd like, take it in chunks.
Katie Bailing says that with good financial governance, yes, free education should be restricted to the poor, though, or quality of education will drop. So it should be restricted to the poor, the quality will drop, she indicates that.
Yeah, and Jet sent another one through. She's very passionate about this one. She talks about tertiary institutions cannot be a parking lot for unplanned careers. Criteria needed based on achievement, not demographic, says Odette. Tsietse.
Yeah, well, I would think maybe some of us should answer that question, guys. We've heard a lot
now,
from the
here's
viewers.
the one for you, because this is from the Cannabis Working Group. Yeah. Right? They have answered, and they say, hashtag fund higher education, 3 billion needed to fund fees, legalize cannabis. Just the savings will be trillions for the fees, tax cannabis, legal would raise taxes, and so forth.
Guys,
your view on that, Tsietse?
No, come on, guys. No, that's not going to happen. I think I'm always the bearer of bad news, and I'm always the skeptic one, but I think free education is a long, long shot. Well, very, very long shot.
And I do think they got a point. Education is too high.
Too high. Well, there we have it. On that note, we're going to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much for watching Newsroom from all of us here at the team.
I like the cannabis one. Yeah, there's legitimacy right there.
You would. You would.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of tax dollars there. Let's say goodbye to you. Thank you for watching Newsroom. We'll be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.